Hulk Hogan appeared on the Bubba the Love Sponge radio show in Florida and said that he spent some time talking with TNA officials about the possibility of working for the promotion. There is actually a good chance he will agree to make at least one appearance, although some sources consider the negotiations to be posturing on Hogan's part. Others believe he and TNA are close enough on financial terms that he will come in for a one-time appearance.
How much do you think that costs?
Oh god, a one-off Hogan appearance? It's got to be like north of 10k, right?
I think far north. I think you're doubling that.
Because Hogan would have been working in Japan at this stage, so...
I think you're getting like 20k for that, easy.
Because apparently Piper was looking for 5 just to do angles.
Yeah.
So when you consider Hogan is a bigger star than Piper in 2003.
It's an interesting one.
The meeting between TNA officials and Hulk Hogan was on September 12th in Tampa, Florida. Hogan, Jimmy Hart, and Jeff and Jerry Jarrett were present. The hope is Hogan would get them a TV deal, which they still believe would be the best move for the long-term solvency of the company. Jerry Jarrett's optimism that wrestling fans and the TV industry were ready for a pay-per-view weekly series has soured, especially because the pay-per-view distributor in demand has been, for the most part, so organised and unsupportive, despite early promises of the opposite.
Unorganised and unsupportive.
Oh yes, I said organised. It's the opposite. So, they want Hogan, Liam. They want Hulk Hogan.
Listen, I don't blame them.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, like, the biggest name in the history of the US wrestling scene. It's 2003, has a lot of value still. Would pop a big number. Unfortunately, it'd probably just be some sort of Vince Russo segment.
Well, we'll get to that. He's currently suing Vince Russo for things that happened in WCW. So
maybe they keep them separate. Maybe that's one of those random episodes where it's like, oh, Russo isn't here this week.
Because what was it, Bash at the Beach 2000? That's the Hogan Jarrett segment where Jarrett laid down for Hogan.
I'm not sure. I don't know WCW history.
Because that segment was a work shoot where Jarrett was meant to be defending the belt against Hogan. Jarrett walked out, laid down for Hogan. Hogan looked flabbergasted. That's how it was supposed to play out, but then Vince Russo came out and cut a promo on Hogan calling him a useless piece of shit, and Hogan was not best pleased, so he ended up suing them.
I was going to say, because he had like creative control in his contract.
So it's typical WCW, where it was a worked shoot that worked itself into a shoot.
No, well, to be fair, the work shoot didn't work itself into a shoot. It was the guy shooting who just decided to do it.
So we'll talk about that in a second with our next note about how the next thing we're going to talk about might be influenced by the fact that they are trying to get Hulk Hogan in. But yeah, like that, the idea is to do that match again. It's to do Hogan and Jarrett, which I'm not sure anybody in the world really wants. But you know what? It's the only. Who else would you do with Hogan? Hogan and AJ?
Yeah, like it makes no. Yeah, you do Jarrett and Hogan teaming up against Russo and AJ.
I'd just book Hogan and Dusty.
That was exactly what went through my mind after the words came out of my mouth.
It's just like, why not? Just book Hogan and Dusty.
Yeah, they're like Hogan, Sting, and Raven versus Jarrett, AJ, and Russo.
And Dusty.
And Dusty's the special guest referee.
And Eric Watts is chained to Russo.
Yeah, and Eric Watts is the enforcer.
Russo just has a Watts on his arm at all times, despite the fact that he's wrestling. And 3LK is your ring announcers, because that's a thing we do these days, apparently.
I'd do a Jerry Lynn versus Hulk Hogan.
The true TNA ace, Jerry Lynn.
Yeah.
Hogan versus Disco, you could do that.
You could do that.
You could do Hogan versus Mad Mikey.
Oh, that might be good. Hogan versus Kid Cash, obviously, the legend gimmick.
Or Hogan against Abyss.
Yeah, well, he beats Abyss, obviously.
Foreshadowing the 2010 stuff with the Hogan and Abyss.
Let's get off this subject.
We will be talking about more about Hogan in the coming episodes of this show, and I'm sure you want to hear lots more about Hulk Hogan.
I think I know what that's about.
Yeah, well, this story rolls on all the way to 2010. But Hulk Hogan and NWA-TNA have agreed to terms, and the final paperwork is being worked through this week. This was in the first week of the month. The deal isn't done. Very, very important
They said it was
sentence.
done on the show.
Very, extremely important sentence, Liam. The deal isn't done, but it's expected to be done. Everything's great and looks like it'll definitely happen, says one insider close to negotiations. The agreement would call for Hogan to be a big part of the TNA product, beginning with a special November 30th Sunday night 3-hour pay-per-view priced at $29.95. The proposed match is Hogan versus Jarrett, perhaps for the NWA title. Jarrett has a scheduled title match against AJ Styles on the October 22nd pay-per-view. Hogan is headed to Japan this week for a match on October 13th against Masa Chono. He'll be in Japan for 4 days and then return to the US. Hogan is looking to redeem his status after leaving WWE under less than glorious circumstances when the Mr. America gimmick was halted in mid-course after creative and financial differences with him and Vince McMahon. So Hogan is looking for his new place to live after the WWE dumped him out, or perhaps he's actually just looking to go back to WWE and he's using all of this for leverage. But no, we won't remember mention that at all. No. But TNA are now firmly, in the month of October 2003, Liam, in the Hulk Hogan business.
I mean, at least they think they are. I mean, should we talk about... Okay, let's talk about the mindset of TNA going into this, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're in their position and you think you can get the deal done, you gotta do it, right?
I guess, like, unlike, I think, 2010, when Hogan does actually come in, I don't think there's anything to lose here for 2003 NWA-TNA. It's not like they have a firm established identity. It's not like they have like anything really going for them at this stage. They are literally desperate for attention. So unlike they kind of threw out the identity of the company to bring Hogan in and like give him all the power in the world in 2010, there's nothing to throw out here. We could talk about how they had a couple good months coming off of that reboot in July, but realistically, like, who cares if you have to throw the baby out with the bathwater to get a Hogan and Jarrett match, which is kind of what they do. But yeah, you do kind of have to do it, don't you?
You got to give it a shot. So yeah, you can't really blame them for giving it a shot. You can probably blame them for starting to book it before they had it in writing.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like, that probably happens all the time, right?
Yeah, and we even talked about how, like, remember when Sting first came in? Like, literally during the show is when they got Sting to sign the deal, and they literally announced him there and then, like, at the end of the show, and they only made that deal during the pay-per-view. So it's not the first time TNA has been, like, down to the wire or willing to announce things that have just happened or may tenuously happen. So...
Yeah, but at least this Sting thing was in writing.
And Sting did actually show up.
I can't blame them for going for it. Hogan winning the NWA title probably would have been some big news for them too, and cool from a historical point of view.
The deal on the table right now would include Hogan being part of more than just the Sunday, November 30th pay-per-view, which, by the way, they do announce. They announce on the weekly pay-per-views that Bound for Glory will be November 30th, their first ever Sunday 3-hour pay-per-view. They promote it for 2 weeks before they cancel it. However, Hogan is conscious of image and doesn't want his first match back to be at the Nashville Fairgrounds, where TNA tapes every week. We'll talk about that a little as well, because there's a lot of back and forth about where this show would actually take place in terms of where they'd actually run the show. That could create the image he's on the downswing of his career, said one involved insider. The arena is small and the fans may be less apt to cheer him since fans that attend each week at the same arena are typically more hardcore and rebellious. There's some back and forth on people who like or hate Hogan, because obviously there's a lot of Hogan related segments this month. So there are Hogan chants, and there are like we want Hogan chants at one stage, and there are also a counter chant of no we don't.
There's definitely some anti-Hogan sentiment in the asylum.
Which is not the first time there's anti-Hogan sentiment in the building where Hulk Hogan's making his TNA appearances.
Well, to be fair, a lot of the other times it was like pretty pro-Hogan, and then he turned it around on himself, so...
Well, even before Hogan debuted, we'll get to this at the end of 2009, but during like the last 2 pay-per-views of 2009, there are chants of who needs Hogan. Like, the crowd don't really want Hogan. And, like, Hogan packed the Impact Zone with his, like, sycophants and diehard fans for his debut in the first couple of weeks, which is the reason he got big reactions. Because they're all, like, the Bubba the Love Sponge squad coming out for Hulk Hogan in those first few weeks of TNA.
A little off topic here, but I just showed my housemate the footage of Mick Foley knocking out Bubba the Love Sponge.
Ah, very good.
And popped huge. Truly a tremendous piece of footage that everyone should go check out.
It is a very important moment in TNA history of Mick Foley punching Bubba the Love Sponge in the face while he forearms him.
But I was going to say, he actually elbows him in the face.
Yeah, he gave him a black eye. He actually elbowed him in the face. He Let's sunk that bad boy in.
Broke his nose, apparently.
Good, he deserves it for being an absolute turd.
But yeah, just a little sidebar there at the Bubba Loves Bunch, who got mentioned in this month of shows too.
Because where Hogan goes, so does Bubba during this era, anyway.
During the next decade.
The motivation for TNA beyond their cut of the potential revenue created if a Hogan versus Jarrett match drew a big buy rate on pay-per-view would be to put their brand name on the map nationally. Having Hogan's name attached to the TNA logo would give the promotion a legitimate credibility with people who don't follow wrestling closely, but are instrumental in TNA getting outside
the
deals
mythical
done.
Casual fan.
And to be fair, if you're 2003 TNA and anybody is going to attract the casual fan, it is a Hulk Hogan.
But to be fair, I don't think you're gonna get the casual fan as much as people who just knew wrestling.
Well, again, I don't want to do my casual fan rant. The whole casual fan doesn't exist, and the people that people are actually talking about when talking about casual fans are usually lapsed fans.
It's the casual wrestling fan, people who know about wrestling but don't keep up with it in the modern era.
It's not a dude who usually watches basketball. Suddenly we're going to become a huge wrestling fan. At best, he'll watch the clip. But yeah, the idea is that they want to break beyond their 8 to 16,000 pay-per-view buy bubble into a broader audience. And I think that the bigger consideration here is that Hogan will lend them legitimacy and credibility in pursuing a TV deal.
I was gonna say with sponsors and TV more than anything.
So they can go to TV partners and be like, look, we have Hulk Hogan for however long we have Hulk Hogan. And that might actually sway people in terms of like giving them a shot on TV, which is a thing they obviously can't do and want to do because they've, like, even at this stage, like the months ago, they've given up more or less on the weekly pay-per-view model being the future of this company. They know it's not going to sustain the company, but it's a matter of just producing enough content and hanging on long enough to get a TV deal. And the hope is that Hogan would be the guy that would help them get the TV deal.
I think that's completely fair.
So Jimmy Hart has a close personal relationship with Jerry Jarrett for decades. I think Jerry Jarrett was the person actually who gave Jimmy Hart his original break back in, I think, the late 70s. So it's actually fun that there's multiple people who are like, oh, we're going to work TNA. Sting was another one because it's like, oh, well, Jerry gave me my break, so I might as well try and help him out here.
Good thing that we're going to get that guy out of the company as soon as possible. The guy that everyone likes and wants to repay their debt to.
Yeah, the guy who has deep relationships with so many stars because he gave them their original break, and now they're big stars and can potentially pay it forward. But now we want to back Vince Russo so he can get Disco. Vince Russo brings Disco, Liam. But who would you want? Hogan and Sting or the Disco Inferno?
Well, you've swayed me.
I've convinced you, have I?
Yeah, the Disco, obviously.
So the whole idea of doing Jarrett and Hogan, is obviously aside from Jarrett being TNA's like A1 star, is to play off of the Bash at the Beach 2000 finish, where there was that we mentioned on the last episode, that famous worked shoot where they did a Jarrett laying down for Hogan, and then Russo ruined it by cutting a shoot promo on Hogan. Again, we'll talk about Russo extensively on this episode as well, but it's interesting that they're building it off of that match, that Bash at the Beach 2000 match, which I don't think anybody cared about at the time. The company involved went out of business, and they're like, listen, we got to call back to this Bash at the Beach match where we did this work shoot angle and never got to pay it off, so we'll pay it off in TNA.
I had no clue what the fuck they were talking about.
I wonder the same, because like this is over, like not over, yeah, it is over 3 years. It's over 3 years since that Bash at the Beach match. So like they're basing this entire thing, and they can't say Bash at the Beach, so they have to say in Florida. So when you're watching the show and Jimmy Hart and Mike Tenay are like, oh, do you mean what happened down in Florida? And Jeff Jarrett freaks out, which happens twice this month. Like the average viewer, I think it's going to be the same as you. They're going to be like, what the fuck are these people talking about?
I had no clue what they're talking about. I thought it was like some backstage thing. I was like, is this like some... Because that's like with the gravitas they gave it. I thought it was like some sort of backstage, like commonly known interaction or something, altercation.
Because, yeah, it's that classic pro wrestling problem where they assume, especially in this era, where they assume that the internet fans know everything, so they actually book the television show around them.
Yeah. Which
is amazing to think about, that like the internet fans are constantly derided by these people, but then especially during this Vince Russo era of late WCW, early TNA, they book their entire show around what not even what the internet know, what they think the internet knows, and their actual casual audience, which is the thing everyone always goes on about, the casual fan, probably has no goddamn idea what these human beings are talking about.
This is a move hoping to attract casual fans, and it's like, let's reference some niche shit that half of them won't remember, and even if they would have remembered it, we can't give them the details to trigger that memory.
And even if they did remember it, they probably didn't like it in the first place.
And if they remembered it, they probably don't care that much either.
I don't think everyone was gagging it to be like, oh, we never got the payoff of that Jarrett and Hogan angle from WCW.
Yeah. I don't know, that's a weird one.
It is kind of classic TNA. Like, they can't just tell their own Hulk Hogan story. They have to be like, oh, we have to go back to the WCW one because that's unresolved territory. Everyone wants the resolution to that story between Jarrett and Hogan and what went down at Bash at the Beach. So we have to finish out that story instead of just having him come in to beat up our heel champion.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
The Jarrett and Hogan have talked extensively on the phone and had face-to-face meetings over the past month. Both sides are said to be excited about the possibilities of a relationship.
Me too.
So there is a whole cavalcade of things that happened this month. We have 4 pages of notes in the show notes at tnachat.com talking about just this Hulk Hogan story. Not even talking about the stuff that happened on the TV show about this Hulk Hogan story. Just the stuff that built to this Hulk Hogan story.
Yeah. But to be fair, as far as actual Hogan on TV stuff, there isn't much to talk about.
But they do bring in Jimmy Hart, and they do continue to build the last 2 episodes around Jarrett and Jimmy Hart, even though they know at that stage that the Hogan thing at least is not happening for now.
To be fair, I think the last show they tried to turn it into more of a Jimmy Hart versus Jeff Jarrett thing than a Hulk Hogan versus Jeff Jarrett thing.
Listen, who's a bigger star, Jimmy or Hulk?
I mean, Jimmy has an album.
It's true, he does, and he has made many good theme songs.
How many theme songs has Hulk Hogan made?
So there is a bunch of talk about where this show is actually going to take place. The frontrunner is Las Vegas, according to one source that the TNA officials have been talking to, representatives of the Aladdin Hotel. There's also the Orleans in Vegas. There's the Municipal Auditorium comes up, which is where TNA held some of their early shows, where AEW held Dynamite last week. The Mid-South Coliseum.
Yeah.
So all these venues are bandied about, with the big thing, I think, the big key being Hulk Hogan does not want to wrestle in the Asylum, in a building with 1,300 people.
Do you think Hulk Hogan would have eventually wrestled in the Asylum had he signed?
Well, if he was there long term, he would have had to, right?
Do they go for a bigger building every time they build to a Hogan match?
I guess it depends how often Hogan would be wrestling.
And is he just going to be on the show every week not wrestling?
Because we'll talk about what his commitments to TNA for this match would have been in a sec, where he would have only done 1 live appearance in the Asylum. He would have done a phone call as well, and then they would have built to them doing that match in another bigger building. Probably, I'd imagine if it went through, it probably would have been the Municipal Auditorium somewhere in Nashville. Because I actually think some of that is what spooked Hogan, that venue stuff. And at one stage, it's the front runner was the Asylum, and I don't think in a million years he's walking out to wrestle in front of that 1,300 people building.
Do you think they could have got that original building that they ran for the first show?
Oh, gone down to Huntsville?
Yeah.
I see it would have been somewhere in the South, because the big problem with Vegas is they didn't have a promoter's license in Vegas. And obviously all of this came together very fast, and they announced the pay-per-view very fast, and they wanted to get to Jarrett and Hogan within 2 months, basically, of signing Hogan. But they couldn't promote in Vegas because they didn't have a promoter's license, and that's the main reason they started looking elsewhere.
I'm just imagining Hogan in the Asylum, in this terrible, terrible building.
It's probably not the first time he's worked the building. Maybe it is.
It's probably the first time he's worked that building.
You got the red, white. Maybe it'll be because famously WCW, there's the story about how Center Stage was this old rundown building until Hogan signed with WCW, and they actually started painting the building and putting up curtains and making it look decent when Hogan signed. So maybe it would have been like that, or it's the Asylum is this. No,
they already did that. They already did the big renovations.
It's still an old rundown building.
Yeah, but I don't think they were going to get much more out of it, to be honest.
They could have put up some curtains.
Oh, wow.
Add an extra lighting rig or two.
If they do all that, then they won't be able to throw people off of it anymore.
That's true. Slash would have half his moveset removed.
And who are you going to pick, Slash or Hogan?
I'd pick Slash every time.
What if Hogan had to join the new church?
Yeah.
Actually, I'm more excited for the prospect of the franchise and Hulk Hogan building up a big feud together.
I do like the idea that James Mitchell, this whole month bills the Raven getting his hands on James Mitchell. Raven's about to get his hands on James Mitchell while Hulk Hogan shows up to stop him.
Yeah, the red, white, and blue.
I don't think that theme would quite work as well with the new church, but well, sure.
What if it's James Mitchell singing that theme?
Oh god, that would rule, because James Mitchell does do karaoke, that's his thing.
He also sang the new church theme.
Does he?
Yeah.
Does he?
Yeah, he sings the new church theme.
You sure about that?
That is true.
That doesn't sound like James Mitchell.
Take you under. Yeah, that's him.
I'm not sure about that.
That is him.
I did quite like there was a jazzier version of the new church theme for Vampiro this month. It was very good. It's much more upbeat. It's very weird.
Sorry, Angel Salazar says in the comments of this new church video, I'm imagined to Finn Balor and Seth Rollins join to the new church. If Father James Mitchell go to WWE every day, I'm imagined to entrance this song.
But the Sinister Minister jumps and starts a new church with Finn Balor and Seth Rollins.
Sorry, there's a lot of things that just happened here. Where Jake Dandy 3 years ago tweeted R.I.P. Jim Mitchell, and then someone said he's still alive. To which Jake Dandy responded, "Nope, that was Taz."
Oh, well, James Mitchell did get killed off on Impact at one stage. Maybe he was talking about that.
To which he responded, "That's impossible. Abyss shot him."
No, he survived the shot. He did get killed by Havoc on Impact, but then Rosemary resurrected him so that he could officiate the wedding in which Johnny Bravo got shot, but Johnny Bravo didn't die.
That is definitely Jim Mitchell singing that song, by the way.
I don't believe you. Let's throw it out to our fans of You've Got to Be Kidding Me. Let us know on Twitter whether you think that's actually James Mitchell singing the new church theme. I don't think it is.
100%.
So the latest word on the pay-per-view site is the Nashville Auditorium. Although TNA officials are still hoping to run an event in Las Vegas, there is unlikely to be enough time to obtain a promoter's license and promote the arena properly. Hogan's side is banking on the idea that TNA will do a major advertising campaign, and on their side they will attempt to call in some favors and use celebrity friends of Hogan's to appear live with George Foreman's name being bandied about. George Foreman actually gets a name dropped on the show this month, where Jimmy Hart is mentioning Hogan's agent and mentions other clients of Hogan's agent, including George Foreman. An attempt to get placed on mainstream talk shows the week of the event, where Hulk Hogan will no doubt do appearances and not mention TNA at all, which is the perfect Hulk Hogan standard in 2010, which I assume he would have established here in 2003.
Sorry, I was just trying to find out the Jim Mitchell
We're moving on from the James Mitchell theme song.
Jim Mitchell gate, I had to find out.
We have thrown it to our audience. They could be the arbitrators of whether or not that is James Mitchell.
Not the audience.
We have moved on. Hulk Hogan.
Oh, but we're still talking about Hulk Hogan.
There is still like 4 pages of Hulk Hogan notes, so you calm down.
All right.
We have plenty to get through in this Hulk Hogan section of the show without you derailing us more with James Mitchell theme songs, your imaginary James Mitchell theme songs.
Okay.
This is like people who think Big Show does the well at the start of his theme song.
Except mine's true.
TNA has zero national mainstream ink, and the belief is that the Jarretts feel Hogan is the one wrestler who can get them some interest from the millions of currently disgruntled fans, most of whom don't know TNA exists. So it's once again, Liam, the play for the lapsed WCW fan.
I mean, I guess at this point it's still worth going for it.
So as mentioned, Hogan has basically set up to do a phone call on the October 22nd show, for which he would appear live for the first time on the October 29th show, and then they would build to the November 30th pay-per-view. So they would have one live appearance in the Asylum where they would shoot their angle, and then they would get ready basically to do everything for the 30th. Bound for Glory, Liam.
Huh, I'm familiar.
Which is fun that they kept that name for their biggest show, even though it didn't happen here in 2003.
Listen, you gotta admire TNA's commitment.
They like the name.
Yeah, if they ever think of something, they stick to it. And they will go for it. We saw it with Genesis already.
They will dig out all of these names and ideas no matter how long has passed.
And I imagine if there was some sort of folio with just all these old ideas in it. They had Robbie E's name circled in it, and they just blew off the dust one day and were like, this is it.
Bro! The word in the locker room is that Hogan has refused to appear on the same show as Vince Russo and doesn't even want Vince Russo in the same arena as him.
Okay, maybe Hogan's good.
There's also been talk that the legal issues between the two men will also prevent Russo from appearing. However, there is at least suspicion in the TNA locker room that this is all a work set up by TNA officials to make it seem like a bigger deal when Russo and Hogan take part in the same storyline.
I mean, can you blame any of them for thinking this?
Because Vince Russo is written out of TV this month. There's an angle that takes him off TV, which everyone, again, assumes is because of this story that Hogan doesn't want Russo there.
It has to be true, right?
And then there are even, like, rumblings around that, like, Russo's not even writing the show anymore, which Dave Meltzer debunks. We'll talk about that in a minute.
I was going to say, I can debunk that by what happens on the last episode of the month.
By actually watching it, being like, oh no, there's a first blood chair and a pole match. I wonder who's goddamn writing this show.
I think I literally said while watching it, oh, Vince Russo is back booking.
So even then, they were trying to do like, oh, Russo's out. He's not at the show. What's happening with Vince Russo? So I do think they're laying the seeds for a Hogan Russo worked shoot.
Great, that'll do numbers.
Dutchman talent Scott D'Amore held a meeting with the wrestlers prior to the Wednesday, October 15th pay-per-view, basically doing like a rah-rah, build them up. Pay-per-view's coming, Hogan's coming, everything. TNA is a rocket ship ready to explode, as Jeff Jarrett loves to say.
Fuck you, they're wrong, you're right. I want to see Scott D'Amore do the Paulie speech.
He's probably done a few of them in his life.
I want the exact same one, though.
Do you think every GCW show starts with a Paulie speech?
Well, if you listen to @GCW Truther, I don't think there's any rah-rah speeches anymore.
No, I listen to @GCW Truther.
I listen to @GCW Truther.
You might think this is a joke. All of these exist, by the way.
It's just funny because they started calling each other by their shoot names.
They even dropped the pretense of why even start burners. Oh dear. So they're trying to get everyone on board, everyone excited about this new Hulk Hogan era of TNA.
I thought you were going to say about this new Circle 6 promotion.
It's actually funny, like, again, there are so many parallels to 2009 when Hogan comes in. Like, Dixie Carter does the same thing, except she put it on television.
Yeah.
The very famous Dixie Carter segment where she's like, if you're not behind me... Sorry, Liam, go.
If you're not behind me... then you can get out.
Yep.
Follow me on Twitter.
Where Dixie did her big promo where she's like, if you don't agree with my decisions, there's the door. And Hogan's coming in and this company is going good places.
If you don't agree with me, there is the door. I think the Dixie's getting better.
I think it's getting worse, but it's getting better as it gets worse.
I think she's getting sassier. And I appreciate it. I've really captured the Dixie sass. I've got heel Dixie.
Well, that's the only Dixie, really, isn't there? Is there a babyface Dixie?
Yeah, I got Dixieland Dixie.
So there are multiple players coming in for Hogan, one of which is TNA, one of which is Murad Muhammad, who wants to start a 2-hour wrestling boxing combined TV show based around Hogan. And then the third one, of course, is New Japan Pro Wrestling.
I thought you were going to talk about celebrity wrestling.
No, that doesn't happen for years.
I watched episodes of that.
I watched every episode of Celebrity Wrestling with Dustin Diamond. How did you not know who Screech was then?
I only watched like one episode.
You freaking... Didn't Screech win that show?
I don't know. Maybe we should watch that. Maybe that should be our next Patreon series.
If I can find it, we'll dig it out.
Sorry, I was going to say the New Japan stuff is actually interesting. I got to admit, I'm pretty compelled to watch a 20-minute Hulk Hogan Masahiro Chono match.
It's not even the main event, but I'm sure it's probably pretty good.
I kind of want to... Because like Hogan always worked hard in Japan.
Yeah, well, he did like 2 more moves, but yes.
Yeah, but that's like him working hard. He was like bouncing around. You ever see like those earlier stuff that he did? He's like bouncing around and taking big bumps.
Yeah, so New Japan are also making a play for Hogan. They want him to be involved regularly, so he had this Chono match he was meant to do January 4th as well. They also offered him the book, so...
Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm imagining Hogan doing a G1.
I'm imagining Hogan booking New Japan.
Just WCW. I can't believe they offered him the book.
Yeah, there's a story about how like they want Hogan to be involved in New Japan long term, so they offered him booking power. And even when he went over for that match against Chono introduced him as like a booking consultant.
Wow, that's insane.
They want the Hulkster, brother. Everyone wants the Hulkster.
I'm just imagining like Hogan booking like the IWGP Junior Tag undercard stuff.
What do you think Hogan thinks of Liger?
I think he respects Liger.
Do you think Hogan knows who like Yuji Nagata is?
No. I think his knowledge base ends at like early 90s New Japan.
Even though Nagata worked a bunch of WCW.
Yeah, but like he didn't watch any of that.
He's not watching these undercard matches with these Japanese imports.
He's not watching Thunder.
And he just has to listen to Days of Thunder instead, where he
I
can hear
knew
all
you were
about
gonna
the
do this.
Yuji Nagata matches. You see, well, Lee mentioned us on the most recent episode of Days of Thunder, so I have to return the favor and mention Days of Thunder, where you can listen to in the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network.
Did Yuji Nagata even work Thunder?
Yeah, did Yuji Nagata would have worked Thunder.
WCW Thunder. WCW Thunder, January 29th, 1998. Yuji Nagata versus Goldberg.
Yeah, dream match.
I'm watching that after we finish this.
It's probably like surprisingly good.
I'm putting it in the watch later.
I assume that Nagata does some leg kicks and then Goldberg spears him.
Probably. Whoa, I skipped ahead, and Goldberg seems to have some sort of ankle lock on Yuji Nagata, so I think they're working shoot style, brother.
Hell yeah. So if you want an idea of who's going to be on this November 30th show, if it actually happens, Sting was approached for about appearing, but he didn't seem particularly interesting. He had signed a 4-match deal, but hadn't entirely been returning TNA's calls lately, but we will get to Sting in the course of this month. Jarrett had tentative plans for a Christopher Daniels Neil Skipper against AMW match as a rematch of one of the best bouts in company history.
Which is something we had seen the beginnings of play out on TV this month.
And something that also went absolutely nowhere. Where Daniels does the tease that he needs his brothers, and then like 4 weeks go by and nothing happens. As well as Tiger Mask versus Hoovy, if Hoovy can solve his visa problems, and then...
You're notoriously your least favorite wrestler of all time, Tiger Mask.
I do not like Tiger Mask 4. Give up the gimmick, dude. Go try and stand in your own 2 feet.
You want him to give it up at like 55?
Yes. I want him even more so to give up the gimmick at 55 and eventually be like, I am my own man. Noah would probably make him GHC heavyweight champ.
Maybe. At 51 years old, you're like, alright, time to be Yoshihiro Yamazaki.
Yeah, time to be your own man.
He's teaming with Robbie Eagles. Oh, okay, yeah. You know how we were talking about Sasuke?
Mm-hmm.
On the watch-along?
Were we?
Yeah,
Oh, as a Ninja Warrior, not the great Sasuke, okay.
Outside of wrestling, Yamazaki appeared on the second Sasuke competition in 1998.
Oh, good for him.
Although he failed to make it past the first obstacle.
First obstacle? Oh, that's very bad.
Sorry, I'm getting spoiled about 2007 TNA on Tiger Mask Wikipedia.
Yeah, he shows up in 2007 and 2008.
Wow, I'm excited. Is that why you don't like him? Because he didn't shit the bed in those matches or something?
No, he was actually pretty fine in those matches.
No, it's almost like he's actually pretty okay.
So after all of this, after all the negotiations with TNA, after all the putting together cards, after all of the scouting venues, after all of that, Hulk Hogan pulls out of Bound for Glory. NWA-TNA officials decided to postpone the November 30th Bound for Glory pay-per-view after Hulk Hogan's decision to have his knee scoped. As announced on the October 22nd show, TNA is planning to reschedule the event, with most sources predicting it will take place in January or February. Spoilers! It doesn't.
They should have done it January 4th.
Well, Hogan was meant to work the Dome, and he doesn't do that either, so...
That's so funny. Oh, God, this is so funny. Imagine being the guy's like, I don't want to work this show so badly that I'm going to go get surgery.
I do think it is very much the case that Hulk Hogan was using all of this as leverage to go back to WWE. WWE didn't bite, so he's like, fuck it, I'm getting knee surgery. I also think there's a bit of Hogan who thought him against Jarrett and TNA wouldn't do a number. And Hogan is fiercely protective of all of that. He is fiercely protective of his ability to pop a rating to protect his own value in the wrestling market. And I think he thought that if he did in fact show up in TNA, if he did do the match, even if he became NWA champion, it probably wouldn't pop like a huge rating. It probably wouldn't do a huge attendance. So that would decrease his value for WWE and perhaps potential outside projects starting up. So I think that's another factor that Hogan's like, I kind of don't want to do it because I think it'll affect my aura.
They should have done Hogan Raven.
That would have been the match. The postponement may give TNA enough time to make arrangements so that they can hold the show in Vegas, although the Nashville Auditorium had been discussed as a potential venue. Hogan wanted the show to take place in Tampa. They know not because he lives close to Tampa and it would be easy to travel there, but because he thinks he could draw there.
I mean, he's probably right.
Because that's where the Bubba the Love Sponge show would have the largest market penetration, so he could get a bunch of stuff done.
Oh, that's such an easy joke there, but I'm not going to do it.
Using the word penetration in relation to Hulk Hogan and Bubba the Love Sponge?
It's too easy. I'm not going to do it.
I'm teeing you up too well, is what you're saying.
Yeah, not this time.
The theory is that Hogan was not crazy about the idea of working a major pay-per-view event on such short notice and wanted to make sure that there would be enough time to promote the event.
That's it.
Properly.
That's what I believe that to be the case.
What I find quite a funny note, given the week before they did the big rah-rah speech, November 30th pay-per-view, Hogan's coming in. There was no formal announcement to the locker room from anyone in TNA management regarding the pay-per-view postponement. Word spread throughout the locker room of Hogan's injury via the internet, but there were some wrestlers who felt that a meeting to discuss the situation was needed, which frankly I would agree with.
I mean, yes, but like, they can't go back on the rah-rah speech now. Like, Paulie does the fuck you, and then it's like, next week, like, hey guys, we were wrong. They were right.
We have to calamitously backtrack here, so we're going to do it as quietly as we can.
Yeah, we're going to let people find out at home, so maybe they don't want to talk about it.
So we went all in on this Hulk Hogan guy. This guy's coming in, he's doing a big match with Jeff Jarrett. We're going to do our first 3-hour pay-per-view. It's Bound for Glory. It's going to be this big, huge event. We're going to hype you up. We're going to start promoting it on TV. We're going to change the champion. We're going to turn our top babyface heel. We're going to turn our top heel babyface. All to get ourselves ready for this big Hogan match. Oh, no, Hogan's not coming anymore. Oh, never mind, guys. We're just going to go on. No, everything we do.
I don't think in their big rah-rah speech they were talking about how they had to hotshot the booking.
We had to throw everything we were building to out the window to turn Jarrett heel and turn Styles face.
To be fair, Jarrett probably should have been heel the whole time. Naito should have been face the whole time. So,
According to those close to Hogan, he tweaked his knee in the Chono match and he will be undergoing surgery on October 31st.
I'm watching that match and I'm going to be looking at his knee the entire time.
There's a theory from Dave Meltzer, but that we'll talk about in a second. According to those close to Hogan, he had never signed a TNA contract to do the pay-per-view. This puts the company in a position where it has to publicly explain the postponement of the show, which they kind of do. We'll talk about that when we get to the actual creative of the show, when we talk about broad topics. But they try to a little. At this point, Hogan is still scheduled to work the January 4th Tokyo Dome shows and has verbally agreed to do a match with Jeff Jarrett in February. Jimmy Hart was going through with his scheduled appearance on the October 22nd show, where he was going to explain Hogan's injury and possibly the new date. They didn't announce any new date, just that the match would happen sometime in the future.
I think they should have just gone through with it.
Gone through with what?
Just do a big-ass pay-per-view.
Oh, just without Hogan?
Yeah, just do Bound for Glory, like, see if you can get Sting into work in his place. You don't have to do it in, like, such a big arena, but, like, they should have just done Bound for Glory.
Well, we do have a few Sting matches coming up for the rest of the year, so do you think they could have just pivoted to doing Sting and Jarrett?
Yeah, I think you just do Sting Jarrett, like, maybe you say you postpone it and give it, like, an extra month of build or whatever. But yeah, I think you just run Sting Jarrett.
Do you think that would actually draw?
Sting Jarrett, you do your AMW rematch, and that frees up AJ for a big match.
Potentially X match against Michael Shane.
Yeah, that's the big match.
Well, we'll talk about where AJ's going in a minute as well.
No. But you know what I mean? Like, I just think they should have committed to it and ran the show. With, like, maybe some less high expectations. Maybe just rebrand one of the monthly ones into a Bound for Glory or something. Sorry, one of the weekly ones into a Bound for Glory.
And then, like, you could probably just still run it from the Asylum then. It's fine to run that show from the Asylum.
Or even if you want to make it a big deal and run it from a slightly bigger building, like, I don't know. I just feel like you should have committed to it at this point, and that backing out of it completely is worse than just backing out of the Hogan situation.
Especially given, like, how they did go all in on, like, they announced it and they started building to it and they showed all the footage from the angle in Japan that we'll talk about, where Jeff Jarrett attacked Hulk Hogan in Japan. We'll talk about all that when we were going through the actual shows. Like, they were all in on this already on TV, and then just the next week Jimmy Hart comes out, it's like, sorry guys, it's not happening. Sorry.
And, like, Sting's a big enough replacement. Yeah, they should have just committed into Unbound for Glory, I think.
Another question many are asking is regarding Hogan's right knee injury. Hogan has a history of bad knees, and anyone who has watched him wrestle over the last many years can see the knees have given him more problems than any other body part. This is from the Wrestling Observer.
Alright, Dave.
Dave is like, look at this man's shoddy knees.
I love Dave's, like, bitchiness in his writing. It's very fun.
And I love that he is, like, the premier writer in the genre, and he's just, like, throwing in sassy jabs.
I was listening to some Between the Sheets stuff, and he was talking about the Big Egg show, and it was really funny when, like, they would review like the FMW stuff, and he'd be like, "Oh, this girl was like 5'2", oh, like how small?" And then like when it comes to the 4'11" All Japan women's girl, he doesn't bring it up at all. It's like he knows where his bread's buttered.
Those who have socialized with Hogan note that he moves very slowly when the cameras are off because of knee damage. He had an artificial knee put in a few years back and has had several knee surgeries in recent years. Hogan has also worked for years on bad knees, and this is only one match. Jimmy Hart told TNA officials that Hogan wanted to make sure he was 100% and not limp through the match, as if Hogan's athletic ability was in question here.
Do you think Jimmy felt like shit for having to do this for Hulk? Or do you think he's like, I'll take it on the chin, I'll do my best to make something come out of this?
I think when you look at the angle Jimmy does when he shows up, and he gets the absolute shit kicked out of him by Jeff Jarrett.
You think that's like a make good?
I think that's a make good, where the dude is willing to get himself whipped to shreds just to be like, listen, Hulk's showing up, not showing up. And let's be real, I think we all probably know he's never showing up, so you can beat the shit out of me instead.
What a good pal.
What a nice guy.
I mean, and let's be fair, I'm sure Hulk was like his meal ticket for a lot of years, so probably has some sort of responsibility there.
And he's basically his promoter. He's not his agent, but yeah, he's basically his promoter.
I miss managers that were like shoot managers for people.
Whether, back to a moment of sassy Dave, whether his knees are healthy or not, his match quality isn't going to change appreciably. And however the crowd is going to react to him would be the same way either way. It was also noted that Hogan could have suffered a minor injury in the match with Chono and not realized it in the heat of the match. It could not have been that serious because he appeared at a New Japan company meeting the next day, walking around the same as he did before the Chono match. Reporters also noticed he was not limping when he went home. The story given was that the knee started swelling up days later and he went to get it checked. And when the test came back on October 21st, they immediately contacted TNA and asked to get the show delayed.
It was the altitude from the plane ride. Flared it up.
Just messed with his knees.
I believe it. Who am I to say that Hulk Hogan's lying?
You don't think Hulk Hogan is a man of low moral fiber?
Nah, I think that Hulk Hogan guy, pretty upfront about his feelings.
He's on the up and up. He's a good guy. The tentative plans for the Hogan-Jarrett match are now either February 8th or February 15th for the show, with Tampa or Las Vegas at this point being the major cities under consideration.
I'm excited for that match.
Well, you will never get it.
No.
You know what? When Hogan debuts in TNA in 2010 and he buries the absolute living shit out of Jeff Jarrett.
Yeah, what the fuck, Hulk?
They never call back to this.
Jarrett, well, they probably didn't want to, like, actually piss off Hogan.
But I would have thought, like, the whole thing about this is the Bash at the Beach 2000 stuff. Jeff Jarrett attacks Hogan in Japan. It would have been the easiest story in the world to go, you know, last time I was flirting with TNA, you came to Japan and beat the shit out of me. That's the reason I'm burying you now for no reason whatsoever.
Well, you see, Garrett, that may reflect poorly on Hulk Hogan, and that's not okay.
And Jarrett's like, well, you didn't show up at all.
Yeah, so, like, if it was to reflect poorly on Jeff Jarrett, I think it would be fine. But on Hulkster, I don't think that's going to fly.
They were not about to announce the actual new date for Bound for Glory until they find out how long the recovery time for Hogan will be. Hogan ended up having arthroscopic surgery on October 31st. He has not committed to the Tokyo Dome show at New Japan, but will make a decision based on healing in the next 2 weeks. And when he gets the timetable, the pay-per-view will be officially rescheduled.
I'm sure you would have just worked like some sort of tag with Chono, right?
Yeah, probably, where he could do very little. He doesn't do anything. That Chono match was his last New Japan match, I believe.
Trust me, I know. I looked up the schedule immediately after finding out he worked in New Japan in 2003.
In front of a crowd of either 37, 47, or 55,000, depending on which number you believe.
Or like 23,000.
Well, the number Dave has was 37.
Or like 23,000.
So that is more or less an hour on the Hulk Hogan flirting with TNA.
Thank God we now don't have to talk about it in the shows at all.
Yeah, there's no Hulk Hogan involvement at all in the actual shows that we'd have to also talk about. NWA-TNA pay-per-view number 66, October 15, 2003. The show opens with Mike Tenay and Don West informing us that an incident happened in Japan between Jeff Jarrett and Hulk Hogan.
This ruled. I loved all of this. I thought the angle was really cool, and I loved the recap of the Chono match.
So we open the show where Mike Tenay and Don West are holding the newspapers of the Japanese coverage of Hogan's return to Japan.
And I think they were this is only like 3 newspapers of like 7 that covered it. And I was like, that's such a good little touch.
Yeah, and they're like, these are the mainstream newspapers in Japan covering Hulk Hogan's big return. The photos in the newspaper, they zoom in on the photos.
I have a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think a New Japan ran Jarrett Hogan NWA title match would have done way bigger numbers than a TNA one?
No.
You don't?
Do you think anybody in Japan knows who Jeff Jarrett is?
Probably.
No.
I think he probably could have gotten away with it. I think it would have done bigger than in the US, probably.
Well, yeah, it would have done like basic New Japan show numbers, which is big, or like Hogan doing a New Japan date numbers, which is probably bigger than Hogan doing a TNA date numbers. But also, like, nobody in Japan would give a single shit about that match.
I don't know. I saw the newspapers, Garrett.
Like, Hogan wrestling a big Japanese star, like wrestling Chono for the first time, that's a big deal. Hogan wrestling Jeff Jarrett in Japan, nobody would care.
All right. That's Bullet Club's Jeff Jarrett to you, mate.
There's also a note in the Observer. It's like, none of the reporters actually knew who Jeff Jarrett was when he did the angle where he attacked him backstage.
Okay, that's really funny. I take it back now. You know what's funny? Like, this the Jarrett attacking Hogan stuff just reminded me so much of Chris Jericho's New Japan stuff. Where he'd show up and beat up Naito at like a contract signing or whatever.
Ripping off Jeff Jarrett, always.
I was going to say, like, Jarrett and Jericho have very similar auras in New Japan.
I do like this. So they're showing all this newspaper coverage, and like there's the big photos of Hogan everywhere, and then like tucked in a tiny corner is a little photo of the Jeff Jarrett attack, and they're like, oh, look at this one too. We're in the paper.
Yeah, they would have done big numbers.
So yeah, they tell us about this incident. They show us the newspapers and say that they're going to show us the footage later tonight, which they do. Which they show the footage of Hogan beating Chono with the Axe Bomber Lariat. They show like the sold out Tokyo Dome, all 55,000 people according to Jimmy Hart.
Do you think like they sent Borash with him to go like get the footage, and all these Japanese news people were like, who the hell is this guy?
This Jerry Borash fellow.
Yeah. And why did he show up just for the Hogan post-match?
Just filming. I like the idea of JB just globe-trotting with Jeff to shoot shit. I don't know if JB was there. Maybe they just shot it themselves, and maybe it was just the regular New Japan backstage camera, but still.
I choose to believe so, because Jerry Borash has ring-announced the Tokyo Dome.
For multiple years.
Yeah, so take it back. I think he was there. He was making connections.
Or just that was TNA had a working relationship with New Japan.
He was making connections. Goddamn! Why do you take everything from me?
So TNA and West later in the show, they show us that footage of the match, and then they post-match angle where Hulk Hogan is backstage talking to reporters, and he's talking about how he's unfinished business in New Japan, and he also has unfinished business in the United States because he has never, Liam, been NWA World Champion.
I think Hogan winning the NWA title would have been pretty neat, but also I imagine there's a lot of people who are like, no. That is not allowed.
Do you think like Jerry Briscoe or Jack Briscoe or Harley Race or Dory Funk is just like, no?
I like to imagine if you had have tweeted out, Hulk Hogan should have been NWA champion, people would have been in your quote tweets going, what? Clap emoji, do you even watch? Clap emoji?
All the Puro nerds would have been jumping all over me. So in the middle of Hogan's speech about how he wants to become NWA champion, Jeff Jarrett kicks the door down, bursts into the room, smashes Hogan over the head with a guitar, lays in some punches before Chono runs him off, and Hogan's laying there, bleeding in a mess in a heap with the Konami logo behind him.
The symbolism for me and how much money I spent on that company.
Ah, yes, you were lying in the heap for Konami, because they make the Yu-Gi-Oh games, don't they?
Yes, they own Yu-Gi-Oh! Sorry, I'll do a second version of that joke. Symbolism for Hideo Kojima getting kicked out of his Metal Gear.
Yeah, because Jarrett is Konami and Hogan is Kojima.
I like to imagine that it was just like Hogan uttering the words NWA that summoned Jeff Jarrett to Japan.
He just appeared there. He was like sitting down reading the newspaper in Hendersonville, Tennessee, sitting out in the lake being like, oh, I'm having a nice day. Then Hulk Hogan says the words NWA and he just appears outside the door with guitar in hand.
Yeah, ready to go. In a completely different, in his all-white outfit.
To slap Hogan with the guitar, laying some punches, Hogan bleeding there, lying there. He's doing the, oh, you thought you could come to TNA, I brought TNA to you line that you will hear a lot in TNA history.
I really liked this segment. I thought it was really good.
Yeah, it was a good angle, I think, to jumpstart the entire the entire feud between Hogan and Jarrett. It only lasts a week because the match is off by the next week. But I think it's a good start.
I wish it had have paid off in an actual match. Or do I? I don't know.
And like, honestly, take out the dumbass Bash at the Beach stuff. This is just the angle. Hogan mentions that he wants to come to TNA to become NWA champion. Jarrett goes to Japan to beat the shit out of him. Hogan comes back to the TNA to get revenge. There's your... It's a simple, straightforward. You have a title match. You don't have to build it off the work shoot bullshit. You don't have to build it off stuff that people don't even remember or maybe don't even know about in the first place. You just tell a simple, straightforward pro wrestling angle. This company always just it's pro wrestling. You don't need to shoot all the time. You don't need to base things off backstage politics. You can just tell a good, simple story.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
Shoot.
Do you want me to shoot? Pew pew. I think Hulk Hogan isn't worth the hassle.
It is interesting to see New Japan footage on TNA television for the first time.
Not the last.
It's certainly not the last. Over multiple iterations between TNA and New Japan, their relationship changes multiple times through the years in ways we'll cover, I think, extensively as the show goes on.
Honestly, has there been a more on and off friendship in wrestling than TNA and New Japan Pro Wrestling?
Yeah, Impact and New Japan back together again. Just had the Bullet Club break up on Impact.
Yeah, but you're getting some big New Japan angles on Impact.
It's wild to see how that relationship... And this is the start of it. This is the first time TNA and New Japan came together to work together in any capacity.
World Japan or Wrestle Japan or whatever the hell it was called. Absolutely shaking right now.
They're like, oh no, we got that sick Kenzo Suzuki against Perry Saturn match. No, we'll get nothing now?
I was really hoping for Kenzo Suzuki Rick Steiner at some point.
With his cool pants.
God, those pants were cool.
So Mike Tenay's in the ring. He talks about what we just watched with Jeff Jarrett attacking Hogan. He talks about how there was an announced attendance of 47,000 in the Tokyo Dome.
I like that Tenay's like, I will not bow to this.
I will maintain my credibility by making it entirely clear it is an announced attendance and not the actual attendance. Before Jeff Jarrett comes out to talk about what he did, the crowd's chanting Hogan all through his promo. He does the usual instead of Hogan.
Yeah, and they're chanting some anti-Hogan stuff as well.
It's predominantly Hogan. There is persistent Hogan chants over his entire promo, and then there's a "We want Hogan" chant later, to which some of the crowd, a smaller portion of the crowd, respond, "No, we don't."
Don't you call the heel section that?
Listen, we want that heel section out. Don't you disrespect AMW.
Yeah, I think it's a new heel section. Oh, we got to talk about the heel section being represented at AEW.
Oh, the heel section sign, the heelsection.com sign, which may just be a different podcast, but it was in Nashville, so it's canon. That was the heel section.
And they were in, like, the bottom right-hand corner of the screen, too. I was like, oh my god, they even got the same section.
They were in more or less the heel section. So yeah, there's canon that the heel section from 2003 TNA re-emerged for AEW Dynamite last week.
You should have seen the reaction I had when I saw that.
I missed it. I didn't see the sign, and you pointed it out, and I had to go back and find it.
I was truly appalled. I was watching that Dynamite with someone, and I had to explain the heel section to them because I was so overcome with emotion at the heel section sign.
They should have sent Alex Marvez out there to have a talking to with the heel section.
There should have been some more NWA-TNA crossover on that show.
Hey, CM Punk did the dog collar match, which was a direct callback to the dog collar match he did against the New Church.
Oh, and not to mention the dog collar match on this show, exactly referencing the Roddy Piper Valentine stuff. It's pretty insane how there's always something that's relating to current day wrestling from NWA-TNA.
You see, NWA-TNA is the true genesis. That's the reason they were using the name Genesis. It's the genesis of all the ideas in pro wrestling. They all actually came from NWA-TNA. And like Mercedes Martinez actually wrestled on that show and in Nashville for AEW, and yeah, she had a match in the Asylum. She had the match where Desire broke her back.
Oh, yes, I remember that.
I don't think we ever mentioned who Desire's opponent was then. It was Mercedes Martinez.
Yeah, we mentioned that on the watch through, I think.
Jarrett's doing his promo. Mike Tenay brings up the Bash at the Beach thing, which again, they just call Florida, I believe. And Jarrett loses his shit. He's like, no, don't you mention that, Mike Tenay. I told you never to mention that. Until Vince Russo tackles Jeff Jarrett from behind.
Yeah, this is the business he had to settle.
Because there was a match earlier in the show that was meant to be Russo teaming with Siaki and ECMO against AMW and Dusty, but Russo pulled out of that match, replaced himself with Legend, because he had business to settle, and that business is with Jeff Jarrett.
So this is an interesting segment, because this is full return of Stone Cold Jeff Jarrett. Mm-hmm. Like, honestly, maybe the most Stone Cold Jeff Jarrett has ever been. But I think it's meant to put sympathy on Vince Russo because of how brutal Jeff is here and because Jeff is going heel. But I couldn't bring myself to feel sympathetic for Vince Russo.
It's a weird one because like Russo is still a heel. He's still attacking him for no reason. He's still blindsided. He does kick his ass for a while. He beats the shit out of Jeff Jarrett for a minute or two before Jeff Jarrett turns the tide. And then, yeah, as mentioned, Jeff Jarrett just turns it around and just relentlessly beats the heck out of Russo, hits him with a garbage can, just brawls around the building, beats the living shit out of him.
Was he like restrained to that fence? Because I think it was just like hanging there while Jeff was just laying in these giant shots on him.
And Jeff just beat the shit out of him, beat the shit out of him, and beat the shit out of him. And you're right, even like Don West again was doing like subtle heel stuff, and he's like, oh, maybe this is too far. No, was he cheerleading this? What was Don's reaction to this?
Don was saying that it was too much, and TNA was going, well, Russo started.
Yeah. So he was siding subtly with Russo, the heel. But maybe Russo's the babyface here? Because Styles is kind of a babyface here.
Because, like, the way it was being, like, sold was, like, even just having Don be like, ugh, it made you feel like you should be feeling sympathy. I just think this Jarrett heel stuff is all very muddled at this point.
And it's funny, again, going back to the last couple of months, we were talking about how, like, oh, for once there's defined heels and babyfaces. There's nobody on this show who I don't know whether I'm supposed to boo or cheer.
And that goes away this month, I'll tell you that for sure.
There's a ton of people this month who aren't defined heels or babyfaces, including this segment where neither Jarrett nor Russo are defined heels or babyfaces in this moment. And, like, Jarrett's doing a heel promo on Hogan, so Jarrett's kind of a heel, but, like, Vince Russo is obviously still a heel. He never turned. Even in this show, he's, like, ducking out of a match against Dusty to do this brawl against Jarrett. So he's even, like, kind of heelishly escaping getting his comeuppance from Dusty as well. So I don't know. We're not meant to like anybody, I think, is the real message.
The NWA-TNA formula.
Eventually, Styles, Siaki, and ECMO they don't really make the save. They just kind of come out and Jarrett leaves.
Mm-hmm.
So as the show is going off the air, we are after our main event on NWA-TNA pay-per-view number 66. Jimmy Hart is on the phone and he's talking about how Hulk Hogan's coming to TNA, brother, and he's armed and dangerous and he's going to take over and he's going to win the title. And then Jarrett comes out and is like, no, I'm focused on AJ next week. I'm going to win the NWA world title. This is the first like actual mention that Hogan is on his way to TNA, and AJ comes out, brawls with Jarrett as Dusty looks on. That's your go-home angle for the world title match.
I like the cool guy who was wearing a Sting mask in the background of this segment.
Was it Sting?
It might have been.
You can never discount a person being wearing a Sting mask as being Sting.
He did grab a child's face and pull it back at one point. I was like, this guy's getting very rough.
Is that a thing Sting does? Does he assault children?
We'll have to wait until the Paparazzi Productions segments come out.
So Jimmy Hart announces Hogan's going to TNA, and then that takes us to NWA-TNA pay-per-view number 67, October 22nd, main evented by AJ Styles versus Jeff Jarrett for the NWA World Heavyweight Championship.
It was alright.
I didn't like this match. I thought they had a very good match earlier in the year when Styles challenged Jarrett for the title. I liked that match a lot. I thought it was a good version of the Jarrett formula. I think, like, fair enough, I knew in hindsight that AJ's losing the belt here, but I think literally everybody watching the show knows that AJ's dropping the title to Jarrett here to set up the Hogan stuff, so that doesn't help.
If it makes you feel better, I'm clueless, and I knew that he was dropping the belt here.
So I think it really, really doesn't help that it's clear as day AJ's dropping the belt. They're doing the double turn that Jarrett goes heel, so Jarrett tries to hit it with a chair, AJ kicks out, Jarrett gets a belt shot, then Jarrett wins the belt with a belt shot. Callis celebrates with Jarrett. Callis and Watts are at ringside. Actually, a weird thing. Earlier in the show, literally the match before this, there was a match between AMW and the Naturals, where the Naturals cheated to win. Eric Watts came out, restarted the match, AMW won. The very next match, Eric Watts is standing at ringside, watching Jeff Jarrett strike AJ Styles with the NWA World title, pin him, become champion, and he doesn't restart the match.
Garrett, you're forgetting one key component here. That's his best friend.
Ah, the corrupt Eric Watts. I didn't think Eric Watts could betray me like this.
It's nepotism. That's his best friend.
He's just letting his best friend do whatever he wants so he could become NWA champion again.
If you cheated to win the NWA title, Garrett, I wouldn't restart the match.
Even if I was associating myself with your mortal enemy while doing it?
I wouldn't restart the match.
Because he is associating himself with Don Callis while doing this. He's celebrating with Don.
I wouldn't restart the match. Even if you were associating yourself with the guy who said that my bit about not reviewing the match wasn't funny, I would not restart the match.
Your one mortal enemy in life. So the story in this show is that AJ didn't want help from Russo, Siaki, or ECMO. Russo's not here. Russo was taken out by Jarrett. So ECMO, Siaki are like, AJ doesn't want to talk to us, and AJ's like, stay backstage. Siaki does run out to try and interfere, but Dusty runs him off. And yeah, as mentioned, Jarrett with a belt shot, with fully cementing his heel turn, becomes your new NWA World Heavyweight Champion.
So I think a point we both differed on here is that I thought this still carried the gravitas of an NWA-TNA title match, where I think you felt it didn't.
No, I think part of that is I think the build to AJ and Jarrett had too much to do with other people. Like, Jarrett was feuding with Dusty, Jarrett was feuding with Hogan, Jarrett was feuding with Russo, but Styles was like the fourth most important person in Jarrett's month here, even though he's building 3 weeks to a match between Styles and Jarrett. So I just didn't think it felt important.
Yeah. But I think it still did carry that weight with me. I'm sorry about the crickets. I have to open up this window.
I guess it adds ambiance.
Yeah. This is the After Dark portion of the podcast.
With added cricket noises.
Yeah. Hope you like that. Ooh, sultry.
So earlier in the show, Jimmy Hart comes out and he's talking about how Hulk Hogan has signed with TNA, and the crowd go like, woo! And he's like, no, wait.
No, the crowd go, wait, what?
Because the way this promo is set up, this is the promo where he's announcing that Hogan is getting knee surgery and the Bound for Glory is postponed. After they announced Bound for Glory, they promoted Bound for Glory, and now they're like, Bound for Glory is postponed. They spent 2 weeks promoting Bound for Glory, and then Jimmy Hart comes out and he says like, I want to tell you that Hulk Hogan has signed with TNA. Every impression I do, it just ends up like Rick or Morty.
It's Morty.
It just veers toward Rick or Morty. Ah, jeez. Jimmy Hart as Morty.
Ah, jeez, Jeff Jarrett.
So yeah, Jimmy Hart comes out and he just says like offhand, like Hulk Hogan has signed with TNA, and the crowd goes like, well, woo, and he's like, oh no, that because he didn't say it as like a big pronouncement. It's like Hulk Hogan is signed with. He's like, no, Hulk Hogan signed with TNA, and the crowd is like, oh well, that's a thing we should cheer for. And Mike Today's like, oh hell yeah, that's the news we wanted to hear. And Jimmy Hart's kind of like taken off guard because clearly he didn't want to emphasize that point in his promo, given the next point in his promo, which is that he needs knee surgery. The November 30th Bound for Glory pay-per-view has been postponed.
I mean, we've already talked about all this. Yeah, took the air out of the crowd a little bit there.
I did like how Dave Meltzer reported that 37,000 people were in the Tokyo Dome for Hogan's match. Mike Tenay announced that an announced attendance was 47,000. Jimmy Hart has increased the number to 55,000 people on this show.
Yeah, I think 55,000 is like the big kayfabe complete sold out Tokyo Dome number.
So 55,000 people in the dome.
For a building that I'm pretty sure does not hold 55,000 people for a wrestling event.
Doesn't it hold like 35 tops?
I think it's like around that 37 mark. So, no. This did not do that.
So yeah, Jimmy Hart announces that Hogan is out of Bound for Glory and that the match is postponed, but it will definitely still happen, even though it doesn't. So Jarrett comes out after Jimmy Hart mentions Bash to the Beach. Jarrett's pissed. He's real mad. He gets in Jimmy Hart's face. He pushes Jimmy Hart over. He gets a leather strap and he just straps the living shit out of Jimmy Hart.
Unfortunately, because of Jimmy's years and years and years of tanning, it didn't really show up.
No, and even like we'll talk about the segment at the end of the show where he's like turning around to show his back. It's like you can see it. He's been whipped, but it's not. You have to like squint your eyes and really like focus on the whips on Jimmy Hart's back.
All right, if I was a worker, I'm gigging that back before that promo.
I don't think I'd ever gig my back.
I would gig my back for that promo. Because it was a great promo that he cut too.
Yeah, so Jarrett beats the living hell out of him, and then at the end of the show, after Jarrett wins the world title, Jimmy Hart appears on the screen backstage with Scott Hudson, where he does this big Jimmy Hart promo where he's like, you beat the hell out of me, well, I'm going to make you pay. I'm going to have my revenge. Oh, jeez, Rick.
I really like, he's like, thank you for waking me up stuff. And it was so good. I was Dixie then, but thank you for waking me up. It was really good. I enjoyed it.
All of your impressions veer toward Dixie. All of mine veer toward Morty.
Yeah. We were talking about it on the watch along, that it's like, it's interesting that I feel people don't have this perception of Jimmy Hart anymore. That he can be like this guy. Like, people are just like, oh, WWF guy with the megaphone. Like, funny comedy guy.
Yeah, because, like, myself included, wouldn't have seen him as, like, an actual real manager and a dude who's a legit great promo. So to see a little glimpse of it here, where he does cut this fiery promo about how he's going to get revenge for Jeff Jarrett, and he's managed so many people through his career, and he has this long list, this Rolodex of people he can call on to get revenge on Jeff Jarrett, and one of them is going to come next week.
You know, for two people who have watched very little territory stuff, we always gravitate to the territory stuff on this show.
Well, you see, it's mostly because the rest of it is like Vince Russo Crash TV, which isn't particularly interesting. So when you get someone like Jimmy Hart doing an actual pro wrestling promo, like a legit just good pro wrestling promo where he got his ass kicked and he's going to try and get revenge, which is like the very basic pro wrestling story. Like the 101 story is heel beats up babyface, babyface wants revenge. That's like the basic premise of every pro wrestling story. So when you just break it down to that very simple quality of Jimmy Hart, who's a very good promo, having a reason to cut this fiery, passionate promo on Jeff Jarrett, it's so much better than all of the other shite, or they're trying to tell these big elaborate stories about worked shoots or like all this other nonsense and with comedy and skits and all that other shite that Vince Russo insists pro wrestling needs, instead of simple relatable stories of revenge and all that fun stuff that pro wrestling is actually supposed to be. So that's I think the reason we gravitate toward it is because it's just better pro wrestling. So Jimmy Hart does bring multiple people to the October 29th TNA pay-per-view, NWA-TNA pay-per-view number 68, where he's getting multiple people in. But before that, AJ Styles and Jeff Jarrett have a confrontation.
First thing that happens is like we get the reveal of the limo and some guy, just some dude.
Yeah, the limo driver.
It's just some guy just hanging out.
And Jimmy's like to the limo driver, it's like, hey, should I reveal who's in the limo? And Jimmy's like, no, I'm not going to.
It's like, all right, fair enough.
And the limo driver's like, hey, whatever you want, Mr. Hart.
Yeah, and then he just kind of hangs out in the background. Whole show. But yeah, we have this Jarrett thing. He's coming out. He's like, oh, look at me. I'm a cool heel champion. Then AJ's like, oh, I'm a babyface now. And then because AJ is now a babyface, he gets, like, quite frankly, thrown the fuck out of the heavyweight division by the red shirts.
So Jarrett's doing this big promo. He's like talking about all he's achieved in TNA and how great he is. And he has this letter from a fan, which I transcribed the letter in its entirety.
Of course you did.
Because we need to verify the veracity of this letter, whether or not it's actually real. Because Jeff Jarrett claims this letter was emailed to him. So the letter says, Dear Jeff, I'm along.
Sorry, this is from someone in New Jersey. You must read this in a New Jersey accent.
Dear Jeff, I'm a long-time fan who's watched
I literally just spit take.
every single episode of TNA on pay-per-view. And I wanted to take this chance to send you an email thanking you for everything you have done for wrestling fans in the country. Congratulations for winning back the belt that was rightfully yours all along.
Joey Wheeler!
The NWA World Heavyweight title is the most prestigious title in the wrestling business. And the belt is in the right hands, with you as champion.
Hey, Yuki!
I also want to thank you for doing yourself and the entire wrestling world a favor by getting rid of Vince Russo the way you did. He is really a cancer to the wrestling business, and if you give him a chance, he would have killed TNA. And finally, Thanks for going to Japan to take care of Hulk Hogan before he had a chance to come to TNA. As soon as I heard rumors that Hulk Hogan was coming to TNA,
a little bit.
I had a sick feeling in my stomach. And thankfully, you went to Japan and made sure you'd never step foot in a TNA ring. I will continue to watch every week. Hopefully, Jimmy Hart won't stick his nose in your business again. I can never get tired of you seeing you give that guy a beating like the one you gave him last week.
The coffee.
Thanks again, champ. Joey from New Jersey.
Holy shit, it was Joey! Joey last name Wheeler.
I figured it was Joey last name Janela from New Jersey, but you know what? We could say it's Annie Joey from New Jersey.
After that reading, it was Joey Wheeler.
It's Joey Wheeler from New Jersey.
Shit. He's got like a Brooklyn accent, but you sounded exactly like him.
There you go. Clearly. Hey, Yu-Gi-Oh! If you're recasting Joey Wheeler, I'm right here.
Hey, Yu-Gi-Oh!
The entire just entity that is Yu-Gi-Oh!
We've already talked so pleasantly about Konami. I'm sure they'll be all for it.
So Jeff Jarrett reads that letter, and then AJ Styles comes out. AJ looking like the jerk boyfriend from a rom-com in 2003.
Oh, just looked like shit.
He had his hair like spiked up. He's trying to look cool. He's the most 2003 looking man.
Yeah, he's got to get that X Division hair again.
Legitimately, I think that's what they're going for. So Jarrett's like, hey, why don't you go back to the X Division?
Why is he Joey now?
Everybody's Joey. Everybody is either Morty or Joey Wheeler.
There you go. Yeah, I hate it when they use the X division as like a punishment.
And I think this is the first time they've really done it, where it's just like, oh, you go back to play with your flippy boys over the X division. You're not heavyweight
No,
material.
because they did that when AJ first went to the like main division. They're like, you're just an X division guy. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm just the best part of the show. Sorry.
Yeah, this dude is NWA World Champion. He beat Dusty Rhodes. He beat freaking Jerry Lynn. He beat Frankie Kazarian. He beat Raven. He beat
you!
He beat Jeff Jarrett for the title. He beat all of these people, and you're still burying him as not on the level of the heavyweights because he's small.
He beat you.
So yeah, the Styles goes to take out Jarrett, but the red shirts, as mentioned, literally drag him out of the heavyweight division.
This was a terrible image. This made him look like such a fucking geek.
And the weird thing is he doesn't go back to the X division yet, because the idea here is he is going to go back to the X division to stock back up the X division and be like
You know what? Good. I'm glad.
And yeah, he's meant to be like the marquee face of the X division, but he doesn't really return to the X division until the summer of 2004. So like he still has a good like 6, 7, 8 months in the heavyweight division before he goes back to the X division.
Just as some sort of jerk off.
So yeah, then we had our main event where Jimmy Hart had not one but two people, because in the middle of the show, TNA went full WCW Monday Nitro, where it's like there's a mystery man in a limo and a mystery man in a Hummer.
They went to some dealership, and the dealership's like, here, 2 for 1.
Again, if you listen to our friends the Days of Thunder, you will be very intimately familiar with WCW's penchant for introducing mystery Hummers. And who is in the mystery Hummer?
It's me.
So we had our main event. The man in the mystery limo, Liam, was Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
A match you loved.
Listen, I think Mike today worked me into a shoot.
I thought it was like the pumpkin for sure. I was like, Garrett saw the pumpkin shot and was like, 3 stars.
A couple days before Halloween, he did hit him with a pumpkin, so I do very much approve of that. But like Mike today was just going batshit crazy on commentary, talking about how like, this is a Jim Duggan unlike anything we've ever seen, and he did work with intensity and energy that I don't think we've seen from Jim Duggan in a long time at this period. So like it was cool to see him go out there and be like fully fired up, beating Jarrett's ass, hitting him with a pumpkin. And the match was only like 3 minutes long, so you can't really go too bad with a Jarrett Duggan match. It was shorter than the Duggan against Mike Sanders match that I did call the worst match in TNA history.
There you go, full circle.
So Jim Duggan has redeemed himself by having a shorter, brisker, more high energy match against Jeff Jarrett.
We did get a taste of that old Jim Duggan spirit. That he wasn't scared. That his kids begged him not to do this match with Jeff Jarrett, but he said he had to do it.
Saddam Hussein couldn't stop Jim Duggan from getting this match against Jarrett. If people haven't listened to the older episode, that quote is going to seem so strange out of context.
My favorite bit of this was Don West saying something along the lines of, "How can you boo America?" And I was like, very easily.
And so the man in the mystery Hummer, Liam, was Rick Steiner.
The crowd was into this. I was into this. I was going, oh.
Dogface Gremlin, you were barking.
Yeah, I was like, Braun Breaker.
So I couldn't tell whether or not they had a real match.
Yeah, it rang the bell. It's a real match.
So yeah, they work for a couple of minutes, then the ref is bumped, then Jarrett hits him with a guitar and the bell rings. I don't know who calls for the bell because the ref was just bumped, but Steiner's obviously...
It was on the outside. He saw it on the outside. He called it.
So Steiner's obviously like, I'm not losing. Whereas Jim Duggan is like, I'm losing. Speaking of not losing, one of the people asked to be in this segment was Honky Tonk Man, who was asked to appear on this show to put over Jeff Jarrett, but turned it down.
He didn't. He's like, I'm the guitar guy.
Yeah, I'm not being buried by this dude stealing my gimmick.
Yeah.
And Jarrett defeats Steiner by well, actually, no, technically he loses to Steiner by DQ because he hit him with a guitar. And then Jimmy Hart comes back out and it's like, you may have dealt with them, but next week, Jeff Jarrett, you'll be facing Sting!
I mean, couldn't get Sting this week.
Listen, he only had budget for a Hummer and a limo. He couldn't get another limo, maybe a helicopter. How does Sting arrive, do you think?
Propels, obviously.
Oh, yeah, he couldn't get up into the rafters. He was like, how do you get to the rafters of this building?
Yeah. He propels from space.
Sting is an alien?
Well, actually, as we've seen from now, he has like some cool Cadillac thing because he picks up his son in it when he goes to wrestling.
Excuse me?
Well, he's got this guy called Darby.
Oh, right, yes, sorry, that son.
Yeah. And when he goes to the wrestling, he always picks him up in some cool Cadillac. I like that they actually travel together. Have you seen that video? There's a wonderful video of a guy who had like AEW plates on his like car, and Darby and Sting pulled up behind him after, I think it was All Out. That was the most recent one. It was Full Gear. They pulled up like behind him in traffic at like a red light, and they saw that the guy had AEW plates, so they both ran around to each side, and they were like, ah, and the guy's like, ah, and he's like, Sting!
That's cool.
Yeah, so Sting and Darby actually ride together.
Because they're father and son.
Yeah, they have to go back to their house, obviously. I was going to say, how much Sting content do you think is going to be in Darby Allin's reality show that he's getting to replace Cody's?
I hope it's all of it. I hope they legitimately pretend that he's his father.
That'd be really funny.
Sting just playing reality show dad. So we are building to Jarrett and Sting next month.
Yeah, Bound for Glory main event.
Well, no, but just a regular TNA pay-per-view main event.
Well, eventually, right? They main event to Bound for Glory against each other.
That's true. We just have to wait 3 years down the line. So, Hulk Hogan update for the month, Liam.
Oh, can I guess the update without reading it?
Go on.
Is it that he won't be coming in?
No, we haven't come to that stage yet.
No!
Yet.
What a twist! There are swerves and twists to this story.
You have to wait till December until we're like, no, he's not coming in.
I mean, I know that he's not coming in.
We're still in November now, so we're still in the, hey, we're still flirting with each other. That show's definitely still happening in February, right? Yeah, definitely, yeah!
But everyone knew.
Hulk Hogan had his knee surgery on October 31st, according to a source with knowledge of the situation. The same source reports that many of the TNA office structure now view Hogan's knee surgery as a blessing in disguise, because it gave the company time to properly prepare for the pay-per-view event. Most in the office don't believe that Hogan elected to have the surgery simply to delay the pay-per-view. Oh, guys. Oh.
Oh no, he really loves me.
Instead, they believe he was having legitimate knee problems that required the immediate surgery. Why would Hogan go through with the big angle in Japan and get everything started just to back out? Asked one observer who believes Hogan's surgery could not wait until after the pay-per-view. I think because he was perfectly fine shooting something where he was already doing something in Japan, as opposed to having to actually go and work for TNA. He'll just do the angle and yeah, sure, and then hope that WWE still come calling, and they still didn't.
Yeah, because it's news. It's keeping his name in the headlines.
Again, in the, oh, you poor souls. There is also talk in TNA that Hogan is planning to work long-term with the company.
Well, eventually he does, to be fair.
Yeah, just very long-term. And he's not going to start for a while.
And he was so loved for the entire run there.
There has been plenty of discussions between Hogan and TNA about working together on an overseas tour, which both parties feel would draw well because of Hogan's star power overseas. As of now, Hogan is only committed to work the pay-per-view, which is tentatively scheduled for late February. One TNA source wouldn't rule out the possibility of Hogan agreeing to return to WWE for WrestleMania 20 for a major payoff, but the source added that Hogan working WrestleMania wouldn't necessarily mean he couldn't work with TNA after that event. If anything, TNA officials believe Hogan would be a bigger draw after appearing at WrestleMania, which I guess they're not wrong.
That would make sense.
But also, he's probably not going to appear in TNA after doing WWE's biggest show of the year.
That depends.
And he didn't do Mania at the time. He returned the year after in 2005, which was the Vince match, wasn't it? 2005?
Not my era, unfortunately.
I'm pretty sure that was the Hogan-Vince match they returned for. And they played off of all of this, that Vince and Hogan had a falling out in 2003.
Vince is always smart with Hogan. Like, eventually he knew it's like, we can bring him in for like a year, 6 months, do like a couple things with him, then we gotta get him back out there again because we can't let him fester. We have to keep bringing him in, kicking him out, bringing him in, kicking him out.
He knows he's too much of a political force to leave for too long, or else he'll like rot the entire company from within.
Or even like he'll build his clique, you know.
You can come in, you can wrestle me, you can wrestle Sean, then we'll let you go again, then we'll bring you back and let you go again. Yeah.
You come in, you can work with Edge, you can do the Mr. America thing, then you're gone again.
You got the red, white, and blue running through your veins, Liam.
Don't I know it.
A note I found quite funny. New Japan's October 18th TV was a 2-hour show covering the October 13th Tokyo Dome. Then they aired the Hogan-Jeff Jarrett angle. The Japanese angle was a little different from the TNA version.
Oh!
This showed a lot more, as Chono not only made the save, but beat the piss out of Jarrett. Hogan thanked Chono, and they left together talking, and it was way more to put over Chono and Hogan on the same side.
That's very funny. I would have liked to have seen that full extended cut.
Of Chono running back to just beat the hell out of Jarrett.
You know what's funny? I would be very interested in a 2003 Chono Jarrett match. Just because it wouldn't be great, but it'd be fun for me to see.
I would love to see what the negotiations for this angle were, where it's like, alright, he's going to come in, he's going to hit Hogan with the guitar and leave, and that's our angle. And then I guess he comes back and Chono beats him up, and that's your angle? You sound good?
I want to see that. And yeah, you're right, the political dynamic of that is interesting because, well, they also just like, We in no way have any plan of bringing Jarrett to Japan at all. So it's going to be very confusing for some of the Japanese fans who are like, all right, clearly Jarrett's coming in, I guess.
So we need to make it very clear that this is just a nerd that Chono beats up and is never being seen again. And the point of this angle is that Hogan and Chono are pals after their match.
Imagine if they just did that now. Like, Mance Warner, right? Comes in, lays out some big, I'm trying to think, Moxley, right? Lays out Moxley in New Japan, and we just never see him ever again, and then they go wrestle their GCW match.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Just, what a weird dynamic that would be.
I guess it can't really happen these days where New Japan is a global company. Like it's fine to have an angle for America and an angle for Japan in 2003, where realistically the majority of Americans aren't going to see the angle for Japan, and the majority of Japanese people.
I don't even necessarily mean the split angles. I just mean the idea of, here's a guy showing up and doing something, and we're never going to book him again.
Yeah. Well, until 2015 when he joins the Bullet Club.
Yeah, it doesn't count.
There's long-term stories everywhere, Liam.
It's funny that that's Jarrett and Hogan.
For the big pay-per-view, Fort Campbell, Kentucky is now being talked about along with Las Vegas and Tampa as a potential location. The upside of Fort Campbell is that it's a military base, which we had mentioned. You basically guarantee a nice sized packed house, so the crowd will be rowdy, particularly for Hogan, which is also good for Jarrett because he's in the match. Jimmy Hart, whose son may be stationed there by the time of the show, his son is currently in Iraq at the time of press, came up with the suggestion, and it's only an hour northwest of Nashville. But yeah, it's still fun that they're like, oh, look at all these potential places we could hold the show.
That's I found. I like the last line there.
Toby Keith has agreed to do something on the show as well, and they're trying to get Willie Nelson.
I would have loved a Toby Keith run-in callback,
where he screws Jarrett out of the match with Hogan and then does some poses with Hogan.
That would 100% been the finish, right?
Yes.
Or at the very least, they would have done some sort of like post-match angle with Toby Keith.
Or maybe Toby Keith turns on Hogan and it's Toby Keith and Jeff Jarrett against Willie Nelson and Hulk Hogan.
Oh, that'd be brutal. If that match had have happened, they were gonna start it with like Jarrett laying down, right?
Oh, that's absolutely. And then Hogan does the pose in the crucifixion and then does pin him and Jarrett kicks out.
Yeah. Or like Hogan's just confused and goes, brother, I'm not doing it. And Jarrett's like, haha, I've tricked you, and tries to roll him up or something.
Or the entire match is Jarrett lays down to try and play mind games, but then Hogan leg drops him and pins him.
That would be the best, actually. That'd be a great finish.
And then he does his poses, and he's only done a leg drop with the red, white, and blue is running through his veins, and he leaves.
No, then Jarrett attacks Toby Keith save.
And then he's the NWA champion, just having done one move.
I would be into that.
Before, of course, he drops the NWA title to Raven.
Ooh, oh, imagine the big Raven-Hogan feud.
Honestly, I would have loved Hogan to win that belt here in 2003 TNA, just for like the political trying to get the belt off of him.
Yeah.
Like, imagine that. Imagine the negotiations of trying to get him to lose to somebody.
He would have vacated due to injury or something.
Yeah, because, like, especially somebody other than Jarrett, because, like, he's not losing to Styles. He's not losing to Raven.
He might lose it to Sting.
Yeah, I think that's about the only person you could get him to do a job to.
Drop it to Sting. Sting drops it to Jarrett. Jarrett drops it to Raven.
Or Sting just drops it to Raven.
Sting ain't dropping it to Raven.
I think Sting would drop it to Raven.
That'd be a cool match. In the 2004 NWA, I guess by this time it would have been.
So yeah, we'll have more on Hogan next month as the negotiations finally eventually do break down.
I would have loved to have seen this alternate reality.
I think we said because we talked about this extensively last month, of course.
It was the only thing to talk about last month.
Yeah, but there's 2 separate segments on YouTube, both of which are 40 minutes for just talking about Hogan. So like we talked about that for nearly an hour and a half on our last episode. But I do think Hogan entering TNA in 2003 is a lot more interesting than Hogan entering TNA in 2010 turned out to be. Because one, he's young enough and healthy enough that he will probably be able to have more than one match. Like, if he wrestled Jarrett, he'd probably be able to have a couple matches at least and be like a semi-regular. But also, as we mentioned, there's just nothing for TNA to lose. Like, this company has nothing going on for it at the moment. It's not like 2009 where it has all these cool young wrestlers and an identity and, like, big stars. Now it's just like, they desperately need something, and Hogan would have given them something, and it would have been interesting to see play out.
Probably would have helped them get TV. And, like, let's be real, it's not their money at this point.
That's true, it's Panda's, so you might as well throw it at Hogan.
Yeah, if you have the opportunity.
but it was not meant to be.
I wonder if like it would have kicked things off for them in any sort of way.
I doubt it. I think he would have worked a couple of big pay-per-view matches that would have done a number and would have been good for the company. But then probably, as you mentioned, vacated the belt because of injury and was never seen again.
I also think that there's a legitimate chance if Hogan comes in, this company isn't alive through some sort of long-term butterfly effect spiraling.
Because it happened again in 2010, where the crowds, after the first couple of months of Hogan, were just so dead. There was nothing going on. And it happened here in October 2003 as well, and November, where Hogan was flirting with the company and suddenly the crowds just gave up on life.
Yeah.
Is there a thing about Hogan and this company where, like, it just sucks the life out of it? Even if he doesn't show up, in the case of 2003, it just sucks the life out of it.
Do you think people just have a Hogan fatigue at this point?
Yeah, and coming off of WCW, where, like, I think even at this stage, people were very much blaming Hogan as one of the primary causes of the death of WCW and his endless politicking and his refusal to lose to anybody. So, him protecting his spot and his cronies protecting their spots in WCW, it was widely accepted as one of the bigger reasons WCW died. So maybe a bunch of people looking at TNA and seeing Hogan come in as like, oh, it's just going to go the way of WCW again. It's not like they had a lot go on for them, but anything they did, it's just the Hulk Hogan show now, isn't it?
It's interesting.
And like that is a fair criticism because they made it the Hulk Hogan show before he even showed up. Everything about this show is Hulk Hogan. Every Jeff Jarrett promo is about Hulk Hogan for 2 months now.
I think that's also a differentiating factor as well. Because like when he was doing these WWE shots at this time, he was just a part of the show. With this, he's the whole show.
Yeah.
And I think that's a different aspect to it too.
So yeah, let's start the news with the probably last Hulk Hogan update for a while, or at least last significant one. The House of Cards has come crumbling down. Hulk Hogan is not going to TNA.
What?
I know, it's a shocker.
But Garrett, I was promised that he would be there in the asylum.
He said it. He's like, I'm going to go to TNA because he has unfinished business and he wants to win the NWA title, and he got beaten up by Jeff Jarrett and he just never came back. Jeff Jarrett is just too strong a force, Liam.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he's too scared of Jeff Jarrett.
He got hit by a guitar with Jeff Jarrett and pussied out like a bitch.
Yeah, it has to be that. He had to have seen how Jeff Jarrett ran through all of Jimmy Hart's soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, oh, I can't go out there. Have you seen how Jarrett's killed everybody? I can't be next.
He saw the hit list. He put the hit list on television, and literally the week later is when it's like, no, it's over, it's done, we can't do it anymore.
Yeah, I assume that was like part of their like, all right, fuck you, man, moment with like, we're gonna take it as a we Jeff beat you.
Yeah, which is kind of what they do, because on the December 3rd pay-per-view, there is a very throwaway line from Mike Tenay on commentary where he talks about how Hulk Hogan has not responded well to knee surgery and how his appearance in TNA will be postponed. And he even makes sure to emphasize that his international appearances have also been postponed because he was still on tap to do the Tokyo Dome. And even when Mike Tenay said that, apparently New Japan were still like, he's doing it, right? So when he's like, he's also cancelled all of his international bookings, that was news to New Japan Pro Wrestling too.
Yeah. This guy, man. Well, to be fair, that's how they probably should do it, you know? They should claim it as Jarrett won. Try and get as much like heat from it as you can possible.
Especially because this is like a considerable instance of having to save face. There will be another one of those this month as well. But like the company bent over backwards for this guy. They removed Vince Russo from their writing team so that he could come in.
Gigantic mistake, apparently. That's what we've learned from this.
They made Jeff Jarrett NWA champion so he could come in. They turned Jeff Jarrett heel. They turned AJ babyface. Like they bent over backwards. They had Jimmy Hart all over TV. They built the storyline for like 3 weeks. They continued to build the storyline even after he pulled out of the original Bound for Glory date. So this is a company that bent over backwards to appeal to bringing this man in. And then, like the news note, Hulk Hogan, after not returning calls from TNA for over a week, finally informed TNA that his knee was not responding well to the surgery he had last month and that he was cancelling all in-ring appearances until further notice. That meant TNA's plans to run a 3-hour Sunday pay-per-view in February were off the second time they've decided to postpone a special pay-per-view because of Hogan's injury situation. Hogan's knee problems may well be as serious as he's letting on, but it's not stopping critics within TNA from saying, "I told you so," regarding the decision to bank on Hogan and begin hyping him without contracts being signed.
It's funny, like, this may be my own biases coming through here, but despite all this, I can't bring myself to, like, be, like, mad at TNA, you know? They took a big swing, they missed.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a, oh, you guys, than a, you fucked up here. I don't know why, I can't bring myself to give them the slap on the wrist, you know?
Because you can understand what they were going for, and they're in cahoots with a more natural heel that can take all the blame.
Yeah, exactly. They had to give it a shot, you know, and it didn't work out, but I don't think they particularly lose much from it anyway, you know what I mean? Like, the changes they made weren't... Like, they turned AJ face to where he probably should have been already. They turned Jeff heel, which is annoying for us to watch, but it's probably what he should be anyway, so it's like, I don't know. I don't think any of the changes were drastic enough to be like, haha, look at you guys, you changed everything for this. But I also, yeah, I don't blame them for giving it a shot.
It is a very important lesson about get the name on the contract before you start doing anything, though.
Yeah.
Which, again, is a lesson they don't learn this month, because they begin hyping a big major announcement that'll change the face of wrestling, and suddenly nothing happens. So...
They're so desperate for the headlines.
Yeah, because they realize, especially I think in the last few months, they realize things aren't going so well.
Well, as we'll see with some of the notes later on too, is they really feel like they need something to break here soon, because they're losing so much money.
And yeah, because Panda have like a deep war chest. It's not like Panda can't afford to lose the money, but it's just a question of whether Panda want to lose the money.
Yeah.
So they want to be like, look, we're getting a Hulk Hogan. Look, we're getting TV. Look, we have this thing. It's the carrot to dangle in front of Panda to be like, well, keep on funding and supporting this project.
Yeah, it's not so much can they afford to keep paying this, it's how long are they willing to do this, and how long are they willing to keep going without any sort of visual of a payoff.
Yeah, and this is over a year into Panda owning the company at this stage. Panda bought the company in like September. I think they closed the deal in October last year. So we're well into the reign of Panda as the big bucks behind TNA at this stage. So it might be like them feeling the pressure, and maybe Jarrett even feeling the pressure from someone like Russo being like, I need to achieve results. Otherwise, somebody will start turning to somebody else to achieve those results.
And that's like the difference between something like an AEW where it's like, if Tony Khan wanted to, he could, like, pile all his money into it, you know? Like, his war chest is also for his investment of the thing he loves. Where it's like, Panda's like, this is an investment of a thing we're a fan of, but it's not our be-all, end-all here. We can cut ties if we need to.
And I do think, like, Dixie is very supportive of TNA. It's not just a project she was assigned to because it happened to be bought by her dad's company. Like, I do think she is invested in and believes in and wants to see TNA succeed, and that will be bared out through the entire history of TNA and through the next 13 years before she's no longer involved in TNA. But yeah, you're right. At the end of the day, it's Bob Carter's money. It's not Dixie's. And if Bob is like, why are we spending 30 to 50 grand a week just to keep this thing afloat when there's no signs of life, no signs that it's advancing?
Like, it's not his passion project.
Yeah.
Where he's like he's willing to chuck in a giant, like a Carrie Silken or a TK or someone who's just like, I'm gonna throw everything into this because it's the thing I like. It's an investment opportunity and something he hopes pays off, but like, I don't know if he's like, I would be willing to put all of my money into this.
As mentioned, losing 30 to 50 grand a week is pocket change. It's nothing to him. But he does eventually reach the stage where it's like, well, this is just a thing that's going nowhere. It's a black hole of money. Why don't we just cut it off?
Mm-hmm.
So there are many viewpoints on the Hulk Hogan situation among TNA wrestlers and officials. Most are skeptical of Hogan's intentions, rightfully so.
What? But he's so genuine.
He is always just, doing what's good for the wrestling business and for the companies he works with, Liam.
Yeah, if there's one thing I know about Hulk Hogan, and that is he is always willing to put others ahead of himself. A trustworthy individual who has the best interest of everyone he works with at heart.
People believed he's using TNA. Others strongly defend Hogan as doing what is best for TNA in the long run. These people, I don't know who they are. Whoever PW Torch are talking to is like, no, he's
Jimmy Hart.
It probably is Jimmy Hart. Like, there's a note that they're still like pursuing the venue. We'll talk about that in a second. But Jimmy Hart is still like chasing down the venue days before this is like announced as being off. So even like Jimmy Hart is probably overly invested in this thing than he probably should be, but also he's getting a role on television because of it, so he's probably quite happy.
I was thinking about that with a couple of people on these shows, where it's like, it is consistent work for a lot of these people too, so they do have some sort of intrinsical investment there.
Hogan saying his knee is not responding well to surgery is being seen by many as a lame excuse to delay his commitment to wrestle for TNA. This has become a fiasco for TNA, and watching them try to save face is going to be embarrassing, says one TNA wrestler skeptical of how the situation with Hogan is playing out. Hogan doesn't want to work a pay-per-view that's going to bomb, says one insider. Until TNA has a national TV clearance or there is some indication it will do well, he will keep delaying his match against Jarrett.
Oh no, at me. It's upsetting, but like, I don't know, it feels like there was pivots that they could have made at a certain point.
Which pivots?
Well, the big one that we were talking about on the last episode was, it felt like they could have gone to Sting at some point. You can't run as gigantic of a building, but you could have done the show still.
It's just funny, it's kind of what they did. Like, they did bring Sting back, they did move Sting into a program with Jarrett. He had 2 matches with Jarrett, one last month, one that we'll talk about this month. But neither were, like, big, built-up, huge pay-per-view matches. They were all like, Sting's going to be here next week to wrestle Jarrett.
Yeah, it's a weird choice. It feels like if you wanted to try and garner some more goodwill for it, you could have still ran a big show with Sting Jarrett as the headliner.
Because the reason we also move into promoting Ultimate X2 here is because Ultimate X2 was also meant to take place on that show, so they were meant to build to that. So like they still do many of the things they were still planning to build to. Even Triple X against AMW was a match that was tentatively planned for that show, and they do bring back Triple X and start building to the reformation of Triple X as well.
What an admission of like a failure of a push that is, by the way.
Yeah, it's like these guys didn't get over by themselves, probably due to no fault of their own, frankly, but let's put them back together as Triple X because that's when people liked them.
And like so blatantly as well.
So we'll talk about that when we get into the shows. Another situation that concerns Hogan is the location of the proposed TNA 3-hour pay-per-view. He won't work at the Asylum because it would appear to be too big a step down for him and make him appear to be washed up, which, you know, debatable. Jimmy Hart had negotiated to run the pay-per-view at Fort Campbell, Kentucky at an airplane hangar where bleachers and lighting would be brought in specifically for the event.
Lightning?
Yeah.
They're bringing in lightning for it.
They will wait to hold the night on the instance of a thunderstorm. And then when lightning strikes, they'll put some of those spires that you can have lightning strike that attract lightning. And that's where they'll hold the pay-per-view.
If you can get that visual, I'm sure that would rock.
I imagine it would be a little dangerous, but it's probably worth it.
Yeah, Hogan does the pose, lightning goes off in the background, Sting comes out. That's good stuff.
That way, the crowd could be small, but it wouldn't work against Hogan because the photo op of working in front of the US soldiers at a military base would be tremendous for him. After believing the deal was nearly done, TNA officials were told in recent days that Fort Campbell apparently needs the hangar to be reserved for military purposes through February.
Is there any sort of like big military event happening at the same time?
No, there's no like major military happenings in the month of December 2003. It's not like Saddam Hussein was just captured, a thing that weirdly like factors into TNA television. Both because it's the payoff of Jim Duggan's promo.
Yes.
And there are people in the crowd with signs about Saddam being captured.
Yeah, and we go full like military salute the troops on one of these episodes as well.
Yeah, on the last show of the month, Don West and Mike Tenay introduced soldiers from the 101st Airborne in Fort Campbell, Kentucky, the same Air Force base they were hoping to run. Saddam Hussein was just captured a few days before on December 13th.
By that team, actually. And then they came straight to the asylum to watch a show.
That was their reward. It's like, thank you for taking down Saddam Hussein. Now let us chant USA in front of you at a TNA wrestling event.
All right, guys, thanks. You've done it. They've done a tremendous service to the country. Here's some tickets to Sting versus Jarrett. We picked him up at the gas station.
Hey, has this big gathering cage match main event? You should be excited.
Yeah.
John West led a USA chant and then turned to them and it was like, thanks for getting Saddam.
Yeah, I told you, it was those guys.
It was surely. But that building being pulled created another reason for TNA to delay the pay-per-view, since TNA officials realized there is no way to fill a decent-sized arena in any market at this point. Which is weird. Like, Hulk Hogan is a huge name and a major attraction. I think Hulk Hogan sells 2,000 tickets or 3,000 tickets. Enough to look good,
Enough to, still be outdrawn by Stardom in 2022, but, pretty good, little crowd as well.
Hulk Hogan could probably earn himself the role of second or third biggest company in Japan.
Yeah. Hulk Hogan would be the second biggest company in Japan.
Yeah.
I love the second company in Japan thing. It's so funny to me.
Everyone arguing over who's runner-up.
Yeah. And I like how that people... this is not the podcast for this, but there's definitely an interesting amount of, my team, Like, from, Noah, DDT, Stardom, and Dragon Gate. All four of them have the, I'm the winning team, guys. I've never felt that passionately about a company to be like, this is mine. I must ride or die with them.
See, I've always felt that way about TNA, but also I'm always like, well, the shit things about TNA are shit, and for a very good reason,
Yeah. Exactly. Whenever I've had a company that I've been really into, whether it be New Japan or AEW, I've always been able to acknowledge the things that I don't think are great about it too. But I guess when it's such a not a subjective, there's actual factual evidence to support their claims. But when it's so close, I guess that's when a bit of your protectiveness can come out.
Yeah, because you take an attack on the thing you like as an attack on you a little bit, and you have to defend it.
Yeah, I think everyone's been in that position before.
Never. I exist in a sole position of objectivity.
We're doing a podcast, which is basically you doing that.
Hey, never mind. I'm just simply correcting the record and telling people what things they should be mad about and they are allowed to be mad about, and then the others which are not.
Within a very specific set of parameters.
Jerry Jarrett flew to Tampa for a meeting with Hogan. Face to face, Hogan told Jarrett he wouldn't be able to make the February date, but that he was still with them. When asked about WrestleMania 20, Hogan portrayed it as he and Vince McMahon had a different vision of the business, and both agreed they couldn't work together, describing his relationship with McMahon to a married couple who had been divorced 3 times. Which is basically, Vince said no, and Hogan's like, oh brother, we had different visions of the business.
I don't think they were debating stylistic choices about how pro wrestling should be displayed, or marketed. It wasn't Tanahashi and Omega at Wrestle Kingdom.
I believe the stylistic choice here was, can I get booked? No.
Yeah, but honestly, the divorced couple's a pretty apt description of the two.
Because they know they need each other, but there's times where they don't want each other.
But then, it's a divorced couple, then, where one of them got remarried and became way more successful.
Wait, which one got remarried?
Oh, Vince is in a way better position than Hulk Hogan is in 2022. He got remarried to Nick Khan.
Hogan got remarried and had massive success that nearly put Vince out of business too, to be fair to him.
Sure. Yeah, but that was one of his earlier marriages who he also got divorced from, though.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, he didn't get divorced from. Vince bought it out. There's
a lot going on.
They left the meeting with the idea that they would work together for a major pay-per-view show in May or more likely June, which would be billed as the company's 2nd anniversary show.
Yeah, that won't happen.
One source at TNA believes the Jarretts understand they are being played by Hogan to a certain degree, but are using that to their advantage at this point to keep TNA President Dixie Carter excited about the potential of a Hogan appearance.
Yeah, they all know what's going on.
Because, Jerry Jarrett's been in the wrestling business a very long time. He spent a very, very, very long time dealing with carnies.
Garrett, what is the last name of the 2 people involved here?
Jarrett.
Yeah, okay, end of conversation.
They are well aware of carnies themselves.
Yeah, there's a reason we say Jeff Jarrett never loses,
And Jarrett dealt extensively with Hogan in WCW, so he's well aware of how Hogan operates. It's not like he's like, oh, I've been totally blindsided by this.
Yeah, Jeff's an S-tier carny.
As you mentioned, there's just an extent of it's worth going for, so why not? And as you also mentioned in the last episode, it's not our money, so why not?
Yeah, it's worth going for. We can build up some buzz on the TV. We can keep people happy, and it's not our money, so we might as well go for it at this point. We need a big break, and we should take all of the shots, even if you shoot 100 shots, 1 goes in.
The theory is Panda will keep funding TNA as long as there is hope that Hogan will turn things around. Right now, industry sources peg TNA's weekly losses is around 30,000 per week. Panda Energy had deep pockets, but they won't be sending good money after bad if there isn't hope, which is what we talked about earlier.
Yeah. And also, the hotter a company is, the more they're going to be willing to invest as well. Like, if TNA does really well, they're going to be like, we'll send you more than what you need because you're flourishing and it'll help you build your next level. If you're doing badly, they're like, we'll give you what we're willing to give you.
To just about stay open. One of Vince Russo's most passionate conversations with Dixie Carter right before he was ousted from the booking position in favour of Dutch Mantel, which was done in order to please Hulk Hogan, who didn't want to work with Russo, was that she was being worked by Hulk Hogan. He predicted every move so far Hogan has made, and he told her that Hogan is going to do what's best for Hogan at any given time, without regard for what he said he would do in the past. The funny part of this is Vince Russo is saying this probably solely to do what's best for Vince Russo and try and stop himself from being ousted by Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, but he's also right.
It's just a bunch of carnies trying to out-carny each other.
Yeah, and the problem here is, like, while Jeff and Hogan are S-tier carnies, Vince is only an A-tier carny, so he's a slight step behind.
Because it is funny to be like, no, for the good of TNA, we shouldn't bring them in. Not for the good of the fact that if we bring him in, I'll be removed from my position writing the show.
But that's the thing, like, Vince is a people person. He can make you feel like you're on top of the world.
We'll talk about that more in a second.
Which is how he's gotten in with Dixie so well from, like, the beginning.
He knows who are the power players, and he knows how to suck up to them.
Yeah, he knows how to butter someone's bread.
A lot of Hogan's focus has now shifted away from himself and his wrestling career and toward his 15-year-old daughter, Brooke, and her singing career.
I thought, like, that was all subtextual stuff.
Lou Pearlman, who was the force behind the creation of NSYNC and Backstreet Boys, is really behind Brooke and sees a tremendous marketing opportunity for her. She would be marketed as Brooke Hogan, not her real name Brooke Bolea, because they do plan to publicize and take advantage of the publicity associated with being the daughter of Hulk Hogan. This is before Brookamania, this is before Hogan Knows Best. That wasn't until, I think, mid-2005. So you can see the seeds being laid for trying to make Brooke Hogan a thing all the way back here in November, December 2003.
Was Brooke Hogan ever a thing?
She... kind of...
Yeah, she was a little before my time in the zeitgeist, so...
Like, Hogan Knows Best wasn't a huge deal, but it was a reality show on TV, you know?
It did well. I have the first season on DVD somewhere around here. I've never seen it, but I have it.
I think it ran like 3 seasons. I've probably watched most of those episodes because they were on TV at the time, so I've probably seen them.
Oh, are you ready for that Patreon series?
The Hogan Knows Best watch-along?
Yeah.
2 seasons, 43 episodes. I want to say it aired on MTV, but it aired on VH1.
There you go. Not bad.
It also had the spin-off Brooke Knows Best, which I've seen none of.
I'm aware of Brooke Knows Best.
That also got 2 seasons.
Wow. God, anyone can get a reality show.
That's the classic, like, Disney Channel format, isn't it? It's like Hogan Knows Best, and then the small character spins off into their own show, Brooke Knows Best.
We have Sam and Cat.
There's apparently 4 seasons. Why does it say 2 seasons at the top and 4 seasons at the bottom?
Do they count the first 2 seasons of Hogan Knows Best as part of the run?
Because there's a 7-episode season, 13-episode season, 12-episode season, and 10-episode season, apparently.
Wow.
Airing basically 6 months apart or 3 months apart, depending. God.
I'm sure all the fans were devastated when it was cancelled.
I love the cast for the show because it's Terry, Hulk Hogan, Linda Hogan, Brooke Hogan, Nick Hogan, Brian Knobbs.
Does Bubba make an appearance?
Probably. I don't know. Sure, it shows up and gets punched in the face by Mick Foley.
Yeah, that's in the show.
But yeah, that's enough on Hogan Knows Best. That's honestly enough on Hogan in general.
Yeah, and we'll never have to talk about him ever again.
At least not for a while in a major way.
Did Brooke Hogan release music?
Yeah, she was a musician.
Really?
That was the whole thing. She wasn't a reality show star or an actress. She was going to be a musician.
Wait a minute. As I run to Spotify.
How did you not know that she was like that? The idea was she's going to be a music
I'm
star.
sorry. I don't keep up with Brooke Hogan.
Yeah, you should.
I know that she was like going to marry Bully Ray.
Yeah, she'll be a very important part of TNA television when we get to it in like 9 years.
Yeah, she's got a few albums.
Yeah, she's an actual musical artist. I've never listened to a single Brooke Hogan song, but...
Okay, she has 2 albums. 2006's Undiscovered.
Still remains undiscovered, some would say.
By 2009's The Redemption.
Because Undiscovered was so bad.
She released singles in 2017, 2018, and 2019.
Just keeping that music career ticking over.
Would you like... Here's a fun game, Garrett. I'm going to give you an over or an under of monthly listens on Spotify for Brooke Hogan.
Oh God! So her overall number for
Yes.
all of her songs combined.
No, per month. In 2022 of March, how many times does Brooke Hogan get listened to?
I'm gonna go.
No. I'll give you a number. You tell me over or under.
Okay.
35,000.
Oh God, you picked a very like my guess there was going to be 75,000. So I guess I'll go over.
It is over.
Oh, well, good for her.
53,000.
That is better than this podcast does, but only by a little.
That is like only a couple more than the Patrons we have.
I think you should go to tnachat.com and subscribe to our Patreon on April 1st so that you don't get charged twice. And make sure we have more patrons than Brooke Hogan has Spotify listeners.
Yeah, we need more monthly listeners than Brooke Hogan.
At the very least, go to Spotify, give us a 5-star review, which we actually have a decent number of 5-star reviews. We had like 14 of them last I checked on Spotify.
Wow, I have never seen any of our reviews.
It just gives us a star rating, so we're doing well. People love us.
Can I review?
Yes, you should.
Oh, I'm going to do it right now.
To put us over.
I just rated it. Wait, we have a 4.8, Garrett.
Yeah, we have 13 reviews and we have 4.8 rating, which is nearly all 5 stars.
If you're that person who didn't rate 5 stars, you're a real son of a bitch.
Listen, 4 stars is a good rating.
Yeah, I need to know why.
It would be 5 in the Tokyo Dome. It was because of that bit you did about not liking the War Games match. It got dragged down to 4.
Damn. We have now hit 4.9.
Oh, well done. Thank you.
Watch it go down to like 4.5 after everyone goes and does it now.
How dare you tell us to go review on Spotify to beat Brooke Hogan?
Oh, you want me to review? I'll review.
So yes, that is all of the Hulk Hogan drama, the entire Hulk Hogan saga. I'll put all the clips together and put them on YouTube as like the full Hulk Hogan saga. But yeah, Hulk Hogan's not coming to TNA.
Yet.
Yet, indeed. That ominous yet.
Go listen to Monday War Games.
Yeah, that's on Patreon. You can already we covered the entire first few months of the Monday Night Wars head to head with it, the Raw and TNA. So that's there. TNAchat.com.
The only time I will ever consent to reviewing WWE.
Yet.
Oh no.